At 3:42 in the morning, the hospital called to tell me my daughter was gone just like that, my only child, 34 years old. Hours later, her husband finally showed up acting like everything now belonged to him. The funeral, the house, even my grandson. He spoke calmly, confidently, already making decisions, as if no one could challenge him. I said nothing. I let him believe he was in control. Because there was one thing my daughter had done before she died that he didn't know about. And when the truth finally surfaced, the man who thought I was powerless realized he had made the worst mistake of his life. I'm so grateful you're here. Before we begin, comment below where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story reaches across the world. A quick note, while some details are fictionalized for storytelling and educational purposes, the core message about family sacrifice and choosing love over comfort remains powerful and meaningful. Now let's begin. October 15th, 2022, 3:42 a.m. A rainy night in Portland. The phone rang in the dark. Not the gentle chime I'd set for friends, but the sharp, insistent trill that meant emergency, the sound no one wants to hear at 3:42 in the morning. I fumbled for my iPhone on the nightstand, my 67-year-old hands clumsy with sleep and sudden fear. Mrs. Brennan. A woman's voice, young professional. This is Sarah Williams calling from OHSU Hospital. Your daughter, Michelle Brennan, was brought into our emergency department approximately 20 minutes ago. My daughter, Michelle. I was upright before I realized I'd moved my heart slamming against my ribs. What happened? My voice came out hoarse. She's in critical condition, Mrs. Brennan. The doctors are with her now. We need you to come to the hospital as quickly as you can. I'm leaving now. The call ended. I stood alone in my dark bedroom, and for a moment I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Michelle, critical condition. I'd spoken to her just yesterday afternoon. She'd called about Owen's parent-teacher conference, her voice bright. Mom, his teacher says he's reading 2 grades ahead. My brilliant daughter. My only child, the little girl who'd grown into an architect, a mother, a woman whose laugh still sounded like wind chimes. I dressed without thinking. Jeans, sweater, raincoat, and drove through rain-slick streets, my Honda CR-V's wipers beating frantically. Portland at 4 a.m. was a ghost city, empty intersections, dark storefronts, the occasional Max train gliding past like a lit snake. Heart attack, car accident. Michelle was only 34, young and healthy, a runner who did 5Ks every summer. Critical condition. OHSU rose against the night sky glass and concrete perched on Marquam Hill. I parked and ran through the rain. The automatic doors hissed open. Fluorescent lights, antiseptic, smelled the low beep of monitors. A nurse met me at the desk, Patricia Moore, according to her name tag. Her face told me everything before she spoke. Mrs. Brennan. She came around the desk. Please come with me. Where's my daughter? Mrs. Brennan. I want to see her, right now. She guided me toward a small room off the main corridor, the kind with soft lighting and a box of tissues, the kind where they deliver the worst news of your life. A man in blue scrubs entered. Dr. James Patterson, tall, gray-haired. Mrs. Brennan, I was the attending physician when your daughter arrived. He paused. I'm very sorry. Michelle suffered a massive cerebral hemorrhage. We did everything we could, but the damage was catastrophic. She passed away at 4:03 a.m. Passed away 4:03 a.m., 20 minutes ago. While I was driving through the rain, frantic but still hopeful my daughter had already died. No. My voice sounded distant. No, there's been a mistake. I just talked to her yesterday. Mrs. Brennan, what happened? We believe it was a ruptured cerebral aneurysm, a weakened blood vessel in her brain that burst suddenly. These things are often asymptomatic until they rupture. But she was only 34. How? Dr. Patterson hesitated, then pulled up a chart on his tablet. Mrs. Brennan, according to her medical records, your daughter was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in April of this year. Were you aware? The words hit me like a physical blow. Cancer, no. She never told me. The cancer was advanced, he said gently. Pancreatic cancer at stage 4 can cause complications throughout the body. Blood clotting disorders, weakened blood vessels, increased risk of hemorrhage. We believe the aneurysm was cancer-related. The tumor burden combined with the physiological stress. He didn't need to finish. The cancer had been killing my daughter slowly. The aneurysm had finished the job. She was dying anyway, I whispered. I'm very sorry. I sank into the chair. The room tilted. Somewhere far away, the doctor was still talking medical terms, autopsy, next of kin, but I couldn't hear him over the roaring in my ears. Michelle, my baby girl with the gap-toothed smile and the architectural drawings, the woman who'd held my hand at Robert's funeral and whispered, "We'll be okay, Mom. We have each other." 67 years old, and I'd already buried my husband. Now my daughter. Cancer. Michelle had cancer for 6 months, and she never told me. Why didn't she tell me? Mrs. Brennan. The nurse's voice pulled me back. Is there anyone we can call? Owen. My grandson's name came out broken. Does Owen know he's only 9? Nathan, your daughter's husband, has been notified, Dr. Patterson said. He should be arriving soon. Nathan. I looked up sharply. Where is he? If Michelle's been here since 3:20, why isn't he here? He was out of town. He's driving back from Seattle. Seattle. 3 hours away. But Michelle had died 20 minutes ago, which meant Nathan had been called at least an hour before I was. He should be here, I said, my voice rising. His wife just died and he's not here. I want to see my daughter. They took me to her. Michelle lay on a gurney in a curtained bay, a white sheet pulled to her shoulders. Her face was pale but unmarked, her dark hair spread across the pillow. She looked asleep. For one terrible, hopeful second, I thought they'd made a mistake. But her chest didn't rise. I took her hand, still warm. I held it and wept my tears falling onto the thin hospital blanket. My daughter was dead, and nothing else mattered. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so sorry, baby. I should have known. I should have seen something was wrong. Time passed, minutes or hours, I couldn't tell. Finally, Patricia touched my shoulder. Mrs. Brennan, there's a waiting area where you can rest. I'm not leaving her. Of course. Take all the time you need. I sat with Michelle as the hospital began to wake around us. Shift changes, morning rounds, breakfast trays. The routine of life continuing while mine stopped. Somewhere in that haze, Doctor Patterson returned to tell me Nathan had called that he was stuck in traffic on I-5. Still not here. I looked down at my daughter's face and thought about her husband, Nathan Sterling, with his easy smile and his real estate success, the man who'd swept Michelle off her feet 3 years ago. Where was he now? I thought about 2 weeks ago at Sunday dinner. Michelle laughing at something, Owen said, her face bright with joy. Nathan checking his phone 3 times. When Michelle asked him to put it away, he'd smiled. Business, babe. You know how it is. I'd said nothing. You don't interfere in your daughter's marriage even when something feels off. Now sitting beside her body, I wondered if I should have. I thought about Michelle hiding her cancer diagnosis for 6 months, working, raising Owen, running 5Ks all while dying. Why would she keep that secret? Why wouldn't she tell her own mother, unless she was protecting me from something? Or protecting Owen. At 5:47 a.m., I finally stood. My legs were stiff, my face swollen from crying. I kissed Michelle's forehead cold now and walked back to the waiting area. Nathan still wasn't there. My phone buzzed with a text. On my way, traffic bad, be there soon. No apology, no grief, no, I can't believe she's gone. Just traffic. I sat in a plastic chair in the fluorescent-lit waiting room, surrounded by strangers clutching coffee cups and bad news. Around me, people waited for X-ray results, surgery, updates, discharge papers. Normal hospital business. But for me, time had stopped at 4:03 a.m. The automatic doors kept opening and closing. Each time I looked up expecting Nathan. Each time it was someone else. 8 hours, I would later learn. He would take 8 hours to arrive. But sitting there at 6 a.m., watching the Portland dawn break gray and wet through the waiting room windows, I already knew something was wrong. Michelle had hidden her cancer. Nathan was nowhere to be found. And I was sitting in a hospital with more questions than answers about my daughter's death. I asked myself a question I wouldn't be able to stop asking. Where was he? 8 hours. I'd been waiting 8 hours for my daughter's husband to arrive. The OHSU waiting room had filled and emptied twice in that time. Families called back to see patients, others receiving news, good or bad. I'd sat in the same plastic chair since 4:30 that morning, watching the clock calling Nathan's phone. 5 times. 4 times it went straight to voicemail. The 5th time at 10:30 a.m. he'd texted back traffic. Almost there. It was noon now. The morning had passed in a fog of paperwork and procedural conversations. Death certificates, autopsy authorization, next of kin notifications. I'd answered questions mechanically, my voice sounding distant, even to my own ears. Michelle was 34 years old. No, she hadn't been under treatment for any chronic conditions that I knew of, though apparently there had been cancer, stage 4 pancreatic cancer diagnosed in April. 6 months of dying that she'd kept hidden from me. The doctors said the hemorrhage might have been related to the tumor burden, a complication of advanced disease. 6 months. She'd been dying for 6 months while I'd sat across from her at Sunday dinners, watching her push food around her plate and thinking she was just stressed about work. I pressed my palms against my knees and stared at the automatic doors. Every time they slid open, I looked up. Doctors in scrubs, nurses with coffees, families with balloons and flowers. But no Nathan. At 12:15 p.m., he finally walked through those doors. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't disheveled or red-eyed or frantic the way someone should look after driving 3 hours through the night to reach his dying wife. He looked like he'd stopped for coffee. His suit was pressed his Rolex, catching the fluorescent light as he checked his phone before sliding it into his pocket. When he saw me, he didn't apologize for being late. He didn't ask how I was holding up. He just said, "Catherine," not Mom, not even Mrs. Brennan. Just my first name, flat and businesslike, as though we were meeting for lunch. "You're 8 hours late," I said. He had the decency to pause. Traffic on I-5 was a nightmare, semi-jackknifed near Centralia. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to ask why he hadn't answered his phone until 10:30, why he hadn't left Seattle the moment the hospital called, why his suit looked fresh-pressed and his eyes were clear when mine were swollen, nearly shut from crying. But I was too tired, too numb. I just nodded and stood. "They need to talk to you," I said. "About the autopsy." "Autopsy." His voice sharpened. "Why would they need an autopsy?" "Because she had cancer, and they want to understand what happened. The cerebral hemorrhage—" "I know what happened," he interrupted. "She had an aneurysm. It ruptured. That's what the doctor said on the phone." I stared at him. He'd spoken to the doctor and still hadn't arrived for 8 hours. "They still need your authorization," I said quietly. He exhaled through his nose a sound of irritation rather than grief and followed me down the hall. Dr. Patterson met us in a small consultation room. He explained the autopsy procedure, the timeline, the forms Nathan would need to sign. Nathan listened with his arms crossed, nodding occasionally, asking a few clipped questions about when Michelle's body would be released and whether the hospital could recommend a funeral home. I sat in the corner watching him. There was something wrong in the way he held himself, in the way he spoke about Michelle as though she were a logistics problem rather than a person. His wife, the mother of his son. When Dr. Patterson finished, Nathan signed the forms without hesitation and stood. "I'll need to make arrangements," he said. "Funeral, memorial service, all of that." "I can help," I offered. "No need, I'll handle it." "Nathan, I'm her mother, and I'm her husband." His tone was firm, final. "I know what she would have wanted." I felt the words like a slap. He was shutting me out, claiming authority over Michelle's death the way he'd claimed authority over so much of her life in the last few years. The dinners that became less frequent. The phone calls that grew shorter. The way Michelle's smile had dimmed whenever Nathan walked into a room. "What about Owen?" I asked. "Have you told him—" Something flickered across Nathan's face, annoyance maybe, or calculation. "Not yet. I'll tell him when I get home. I'd like to be there when you do." "That's not necessary. Nathan, he's my grandson, and he's my son." Nathan's voice hardened. "I'll handle it." I wanted to argue, but Dr. Patterson was standing in the doorway, clearly uncomfortable with the tension crackling between us. I swallowed my anger and nodded. Nathan left without another word. I stayed in that small consultation room for a long time after he'd gone staring at the blank wall and trying to understand what had just happened. My daughter was dead. Her husband had arrived 8 hours late, signed paperwork with the emotional investment of someone closing a business deal, and shut me out of every decision that would follow. And Owen, sweet, bright, 9-year-old Owen, would learn that his mother was gone from a father who'd barely been present in his life. I thought about the Sunday dinners again, the way Michelle's hand would tremble slightly when she reached for her water glass, the way she'd glance at Nathan when he spoke as though gauging his mood before she responded, the way she'd started making excuses for why they couldn't come over, why Owen couldn't spend the weekend with me. I'd told myself it was just the stress of her architecture practice, the demands of raising a child, the normal friction of marriage. But sitting in that hospital room with the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead and the smell of antiseptic thick in the air, I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. Something had been wrong. Something Michelle had been trying to tell me without words. And now she was gone, and Nathan was in control, and I had no idea how to protect Owen from whatever came next. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Dorothy Fletcher's number. Dorothy had been Michelle's neighbor for 6 years, a retired school teacher who'd watched Owen after school sometimes when Michelle worked late. If anyone knew what had been happening in that house on Laurelhurst Avenue, it would be Dorothy. My finger hovered over the call button. Then I put the phone away. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was dealing with. Not until I understood why Nathan Sterling had taken 8 hours to arrive at his wife's deathbed and why the first thing he'd done was shut me out. I smoothed my coat and walked back through the waiting room toward the exit. The automatic doors slid open. Rain was falling again, soft and steady, turning the city gray. And somewhere in that city, Nathan was driving home to tell Owen that his mother was dead. I should have been there. I should have fought harder. But I'd been too shocked, too grief-stricken, too blindsided by the cold efficiency of Michelle's husband. 8 hours. I was beginning to realize that 8 hours might be the least of what Nathan Sterling had stolen from us. 3 days later, I stood in the second row at my own daughter's funeral. Not the first row. Nathan had made that clear when I'd arrived at Grace Memorial Episcopal Church. The first row is for immediate family. He'd set his hand firm on Owen's shoulder. You understand. I understood perfectly. Michelle's casket sat at the front of the sanctuary, covered in white roses, her favorite. The church was packed colleagues from her architecture firm, neighbors, parents from Owen's school, faces I recognized, and many I didn't. They'd come to mourn my brilliant daughter. And I sat in the second row behind my own grandson like a stranger. Owen looked so small in his dark suit, his thin shoulders hunched, his 9-year-old hands clasped in his lap. Even from behind, I could see he'd lost weight, his collar too loose, his suit jacket hanging oddly. When had that happened? I'd seen him just 2 weeks ago at Sunday dinner, and he'd been fine. Now he looked fragile, breakable. Nathan sat beside him in a perfectly tailored black suit, his arm around Owen in a gesture that might have looked protective if I hadn't seen the way his fingers dug into the boy's shoulder. Possessive, controlling. The service began. A minister who'd never met Michelle read generic platitudes about loss and heaven. Nathan had refused my offer to speak, refused to let me help choose the readings or the music. I've got it handled, he'd said. So I sat in my second row seat and listened to strangers talk about my daughter. Halfway through, Owen turned his head slightly, searching. His eyes found mine, red-rimmed, puffy from crying. He mouthed something. Grandma and I saw his face crumple before Nathan's hand tightened on his shoulder, pulling him back around. My heart broke all over again. After the service, during the reception in the church hall, I finally got close to Owen. Nathan had been pulled aside by the minister, and I saw my chance. I crossed the room, quickly crouched down in front of my grandson. "Owen, sweetheart." He threw his arms around my neck and buried his face in my shoulder. His small body shook with sobs. "Grandma," he whispered. "I miss her. I miss Mom so much." "I know, baby. I know." I held him tight, stroking his hair, feeling how thin he'd gotten. "I'm here. I'm right here." "I tried to call you," he said, pulling back to look at me with devastated eyes. "But Dad said you were busy." He said, "Owen." Nathan's voice cut through the quiet murmur. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his face tight with barely controlled anger. "Come here, now." "But Grandma." "Now, Owen." The boy flinched. Actually flinched. Then he pulled away from me and walked to his father, his head down. Nathan's hand clamped on Owen's shoulder again. He looked at me with cold eyes. "Catherine, I'd appreciate it if you didn't upset him. This is hard enough without—" I wasn't upsetting him. I was comforting him. "He needs stability, not drama. Drama." My voice rose. I'm his grandmother. I haven't seen him in 4 days. You won't return my calls. You won't let me. Mrs. Brennan. A man's voice interrupted. I turned to see a tall man in his mid-40s, dark hair graying at the temples, wire-rimmed glasses. He extended his hand. Andrew Morrison. I was a friend of Michelle's from college. I'm very sorry for your loss. I shook his hand, still rattled. Thank you. Could I speak with you for a moment privately? Nathan's eyes narrowed. I don't think it's about Michelle's estate, Morrison said smoothly, pulling a business card from his pocket. I'm an attorney. Michelle asked me to handle some matters for her. Mrs. Brennan, could you come to my office tomorrow? Say 2 p.m. I looked at the card. Morrison and Associates, 1000 Southwest Broadway Suite, 1800. Yes, I said, I'll be there. Excellent. Morrison nodded to Nathan. Mr. Sterling, you should come as well. There are things Michelle wanted both of you to know. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. Morrison excused himself, and I watched him disappear into the crowd, wondering what Michelle had needed an attorney for. The reception dragged on. I tried twice more to reach Owen, but Nathan kept him close, steering him away whenever I approached. By the time people began to leave, I was exhausted and furious and heartsick. I walked out to the parking lot as the autumn sun sank low. Most of the cars had gone. I was fumbling for my keys when I heard voices, Nathan's voice low and tense. I looked up. He stood beside a black Mercedes S-Class parked in the far corner. Not the Subaru Michelle had driven, not the Audi he usually drove. Owen was already in the back seat, his small face pressed against the window. But it was the woman that made me stop. She was maybe 32, dressed in an elegant camel coat, her chestnut hair falling in perfect waves. She stood close to Nathan, too close, and as I watched, she reached up and adjusted his tie. An intimate gesture, familiar. Nathan's hand went to her waist, lingered there for just a moment before he pulled away and glanced around the parking lot. He saw me. Our eyes met across the distance. For a second, neither of us moved. Then the woman turned, following his gaze, and I saw her face clearly beautiful, polished, expensive. Not grieving, not a mourner. Nathan said something to her, I couldn't hear what, and she slipped into the driver's seat. He climbed into the passenger side, and the Mercedes pulled away, leaving me standing alone in the empty parking lot. I stood there long after the taillights disappeared, my mind racing. A woman, a stranger, at my daughter's funeral, touching Nathan like she had every right. I thought about the way he'd checked his phone constantly at the hospital, the way he'd been stuck in traffic for 8 hours, the way he'd kept Owen away from me, controlled every aspect of the funeral, and I thought about Andrew Morrison's card in my purse. There are things Michelle wanted both of you to know. What had my daughter discovered before she died? I got into my Honda and drove home through the gathering dark, that question echoing with every mile. What had Michelle known? Morrison and Associates, 1000 Southwest Broadway Suite, 1800. The next morning, I learned that my daughter had prepared for a war. The law office occupied the 18th floor of a glass tower downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. Andrew Morrison met me in the lobby, same wire-rimmed glasses, same calm demeanor, and led me to a conference room where Nathan already sat checking his phone. He didn't look up when I entered. Thank you both for coming, Morrison said, settling into his chair and opening a leather folder. I know this is difficult timing, but Michelle was very specific about wanting this handled quickly. Nathan finally pocketed his phone. Let's get this over with. I have meetings this afternoon. Morrison's expression didn't change. Of course. I'll be brief. He pulled out a document. Michelle came to me in July of this year to update her will. She was very clear about her intentions. July, I said. That was only 3 months ago. Yes. Morrison glanced at me, and something in his eyes made my stomach tighten. Mrs. Brennan, your daughter, left very specific instructions. The door opened. A man in his late 40s entered, sharp-featured and aggressive-looking in an expensive suit. Marcus Blackwell, he said curtly. Mr. Sterling's attorney. I'm here to observe. Nathan hadn't mentioned bringing a lawyer. I looked at him, but he was staring at Morrison, jaw tight. Very well, Morrison said. He began to read. Most of it was legal language I barely understood: fiduciary duties, probate procedures, executor responsibilities. But then Morrison reached the asset distribution, and my world tilted. To my mother, Catherine Brennan, he read, "I leave my house located at 2847 Laurelhurst Avenue, Portland, Oregon, currently valued at approximately $850,000. I stopped breathing. Nathan's head snapped up. What? The house was purchased by Michelle in 2010. Morrison continued calmly. Prior to her marriage, it remained in her name alone and constitutes separate property under Oregon law. That's impossible, Nathan said. We bought that house together. Actually, you didn't. Morrison slid a document across the table. This is the original deed, Michelle's name only. She purchased it 3 years before you married. Nathan grabbed the paper, his face darkening. She told me we owned it together. Perhaps she let you believe that, Morrison said. But legally, it was always hers, and now it belongs to Mrs. Brennan. My hands were shaking. Michelle's house. The beautiful craftsman where Owen had grown up, where Michelle had lived for 13 years. She'd left it to me. Morrison continued reading. I also leave to my mother the following: my 2021 Mercedes GLE 450, valued at approximately $65,000. My 2019 Subaru Outback, valued at approximately $38,000, and the full balance of my personal bank account at U.S. Bank, currently holding $47,000. This is ridiculous, Nathan said, his voice rising. I'm her husband. There's more, Morrison said. To my son, Owen Brennan, I leave the full balance of his 529 college trust fund, valued at $320,000. With my mother, Catherine Brennan, named as trustee until Owen reaches age 25. Marcus Blackwell leaned forward. Mr. Morrison, I have to object. This is highly irregular. In Oregon, a surviving spouse has rights to community property. Yes, Morrison said, which Mr. Sterling will receive. Michelle's life insurance policy, $750,000, names Mr. Sterling as the sole beneficiary. Their joint investment account, approximately $50,000, passes to him automatically. But the assets I've just described were Michelle's separate property acquired before marriage or held in her name alone. She had every legal right to dispose of them as she wished. Nathan stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. This is bullshit. We were married. I lived in that house. I drove those cars. With your wife's permission, Morrison said, but they were never yours. She wouldn't do this. Michelle wouldn't. Nathan's hands were fists on the table. Someone pressured her. Her mother, probably. This isn't... I started to say, but Morrison held up his hand. Mr. Sterling, I can assure you that Michelle came to me of her own volition. She was very clear-minded and very determined. I asked her repeatedly if she was certain about these decisions. She was. When? Nathan demanded. When did she do this? July 22nd, 2022. The will was properly witnessed, notarized, and filed. It's completely valid. Nathan turned to Marcus. Can we contest this? Marcus studied the document. We can try. Undue influence, lack of capacity. Michelle was a licensed architect. Morrison interrupted. She had no mental health issues, no cognitive impairment. I have detailed notes from our meetings showing she understood exactly what she was doing and why. Why? Nathan's voice was almost a shout now. Why would she do this? The room fell silent. Morrison looked at Nathan for a long moment. Perhaps, he said quietly, you should ask yourself that question. Nathan's face went white, then red. He grabbed his briefcase. This isn't over. We're filing a contest tomorrow. You'll be hearing from us. Marcus gathered his papers quickly. Mr. Sterling, wait. But Nathan was already at the door. He turned back, pointing at me. You put her up to this. You poisoned her against me. You're not getting away with this, Catherine. You're not taking my son. Owen is my grandson. He's my son, and you'll never see him again. I promise you that. He slammed out. Marcus followed, shooting Morrison an apologetic look. The door closed. The conference room fell quiet except for the muted sounds of traffic 18 floors below. I sat frozen trying to process what had just happened. Michelle had left me her house, her cars, Owen's trust fund. She'd cut Nathan out of everything except the insurance money. Mrs. Brennan. Morrison's voice was gentle. Are you all right? I don't understand. Why would Michelle... She was protecting Owen, Morrison said simply, and she was protecting you. She wanted to make sure you had the resources to fight for your grandson if it came to that. If it came to that. Andrew, I said slowly, what did my daughter know? He reached into his folder and pulled out a sealed envelope. My name was written across it in Michelle's handwriting. She asked me to give you this, he said. Read it alone at home and then call me. He stood, walked to the door, paused. Your daughter was very brave, Mrs. Brennan, and she was right to be afraid. He left me sitting alone in the conference room, holding my daughter's last words, finally understanding. Michelle had known something was wrong, and she'd prepared for war. That night alone in my quiet house on Laurelhurst Avenue, I opened my daughter's last words to me. Rain drummed against the windows, the same October rain that had been falling the night Michelle died, the same rain that seemed to follow every moment of grief in this city. I sat at my kitchen table, the sealed envelope in front of me, Morrison's words echoing in my mind. Read it alone at home. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. Inside were 3 sheets of lined paper covered in Michelle's handwriting. That familiar architect's precision, each letter perfectly formed each line, straight even without guidelines. I could picture her writing this probably late at night after Owen had gone to bed, choosing each word carefully. The date at the top read, October 10th, 2022. 5 days before she died. I began to read. Mom, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you in person. I planned till we were supposed to have lunch on October 15th, remember? But I ran out of time. I always thought I'd have more time. In April, I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave me 3 to 6 months. They also warned me about complications, blood clots, hemorrhages, organ failure. Any of them could happen at any time. That's why I'm writing this now while I still can. It's October now, so I beat their worst-case scenario by a few weeks. Small victories, right? I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I tell you? Why didn't I fight? Why didn't I do chemotherapy? Mom, I thought about it. I really did. But the oncologist was honest with me. Chemo might buy me another 2 or 3 months maybe, but I'd be sick the entire time. Weak. Bedridden. Unable to protect Owen. And I couldn't afford that. Not with Nathan. I need you to understand something about my husband. The man I married 3 years ago or thought I married doesn't exist. Maybe he never did. I've spent the last 6 months discovering who Nathan Sterling really is, and Mom, I'm terrified of what he'll do to Owen once I'm gone. I can't tell you everything in this letter. It's too much, and frankly, some of it you won't believe until you see the evidence. Andrew Morrison has it all: bank statements, documentation, photographs, things I discovered when I started looking, things I wish I'd never found. But here's what you need to know. Nathan has been stealing from us. From me, from Owen's college fund, from accounts I didn't even know he'd opened in my name. He's been living a double life, Mom. And when I confronted him about it in September, he didn't apologize. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He threatened me. He said if I ever told anyone, if I went to the police, if I filed for divorce, he'd make sure I never saw Owen again. He said he'd prove I was an unfit mother, that my cancer made me unstable, irrational, a danger to our son. He'd already consulted lawyers. He had a plan. So I made my own plan. I updated my will. I gave you the house because it's the only leverage we have. Nathan's been using it as collateral for loans I knew nothing about. If he gets it, he'll lose it to his creditors within months. But if you have it, you can sell it if you need to. Use the money to fight for Owen. The cars are in your name now, the bank account, Owen's trust fund. I've made sure Nathan can't touch any of it. He'll get the life insurance money. I couldn't change that beneficiary without his signature, but that's all. I wish I could be there to protect my son myself. I wish I had years, not months. I wish I could watch Owen grow up, graduate, fall in love, become the amazing man I know he'll be. But I don't have time. The cancer is winning. I can feel it. So I'm giving this fight to you, Mom. I know that's not fair. I know you've already lost Dad, and now you're losing me, and I'm asking you to go to war with my husband over my son. It's too much to ask, but you're the only person I trust, the only person strong enough. Owen isn't safe with Nathan. I've seen the signs, the way Nathan loses his temper, the way he ignores Owen when he's on his phone, the way he prioritizes his business deals over everything else. Last week, I came home early and found Owen alone in the house at 9 p.m. 9-year-old mom, alone. Nathan had gone out and forgotten to arrange a babysitter. When I confronted him, he told me I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid because of the cancer, that I was a bad mother for not trusting him. Maybe I am paranoid. Maybe the cancer has made me see threats that aren't there. But I don't think so. Mom, please don't let Nathan keep Owen. Fight for him. Use everything I've left you. Andrew will help you. I've already talked to him about custody options. It won't be easy. Nathan will fight back hard. He'll say terrible things about you, about me, about our family. But you're stronger than he is. You've always been stronger than anyone gives you credit for. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry for all of this. Take care of my boy, please. Your daughter, Michelle. P.S. Owen knows I'm sick, but not how sick. I told him Mommy wasn't feeling well. When I'm gone, tell him I loved him more than anything in the world. Tell him every single day. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face, my hands shaking so badly the paper rustled. April. Michelle had known since April that she was dying. 6 months she'd carried this alone, investigating her husband, gathering evidence, preparing for a war she knew she wouldn't live to fight. My brilliant, brave daughter. I pressed my hand to my mouth, choking back sobs. She'd spent her final months not in treatment, not resting, not grieving her shortened life, but protecting her son, building a case, arming me with weapons for the battle ahead. Nathan has been stealing from us. He threatened me. Owen isn't safe with him. I thought about Nathan at the hospital, 8 hours late, checking his phone. Nathan at the funeral, cold and controlled, keeping Owen away from me. Nathan at the will, reading furious and threatening when he realized he'd lost. You'll never see him again. I promise you that. I stood abruptly in my chair, scraping back. The house suddenly felt too quiet, too empty. I grabbed my phone and dialed Nathan's number. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. His smooth voice, "You've reached Nathan Sterling. Leave a message." I hung up and immediately called again. Voicemail again. I tried a 3rd time, my panic rising. Where was Owen right now? Was he safe? Was he fed? Was Nathan even home, or had he left my 9-year-old grandson alone again? I looked at the clock, 9:47 p.m. Too late to drive to Michelle's house, Nathan's house, now legally until the probate finished. Too late to call Child Protective Services. Too late to do anything except sit here with my daughter's letter and my rising dread. I dialed Morrison's number instead. He answered on the 2nd ring. "Mrs. Brennan, did you read the letter?" "Yes." My voice was hoarse. "Andrew, you said you have evidence. I need to see it. Tomorrow. First thing." "Of course. Come to my office at 9 a.m. But Mrs. Brennan..." He paused. "What you're about to see, it's worse than you think. Worse than my daughter dying of cancer while her husband stole from her." "Yes," Morrison said quietly. "Much worse." He hung up. I sat alone in my kitchen. Michelle's letter spread before me. Rain falling outside, and I thought about my grandson sleeping somewhere across town, or not sleeping. Maybe lying awake, missing his mother, wondering why Grandma hadn't come to see him. "I'm coming, Owen," I thought. "I'm coming." I folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and set it on the table beside my cold coffee. Tomorrow I would see Morrison's evidence. Tomorrow I would learn what Michelle had discovered. Tomorrow the war would truly begin. But tonight I mourned. For my daughter who died alone with her terrible knowledge. For my grandson who'd lost his mother. For the 6 months of suffering Michelle had endured in silence. And I made her a promise whispered into the empty kitchen. "I won't let him win. I swear it, baby. I won't let him take Owen." Outside, the rain fell harder, and somewhere in the darkness, my grandson slept in a house that was no longer safe. Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan built a wall between Owen and me. I called his number 6 times in the first 3 days. The first 2 calls rang through to voicemail. The 3rd time he answered with a curt, "What do you want, Catherine?" and hung up before I could respond. The 4th and 5th calls went unanswered. On the 6th, I received a text. Owen needs stability right now. Your constant calls are disruptive. Please stop. Stability. The word he kept using like a weapon. I tried a different approach. On October 24th, I drove to Michelle's house, the house that was legally mine now, though Nathan still lived there. The craftsman stood quiet in the afternoon light, Owen's bicycle lying on its side in the front yard, Michelle's garden, already showing signs of neglect. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I could see lights on inside. Nathan's Audi sat in the driveway. I rang again, then knocked. The intercom crackled. "Catherine," Nathan's voice flat. "What are you doing here?" "I want to see Owen. I haven't seen my grandson in 9 days." "This isn't a good time." "Then when is a good time? I've been calling." "Owen's doing homework. He needs to concentrate." "Nathan, please, just 5 minutes. I won't." I said no. The intercom went dead. I stood on the porch of my own house, legally mine, and was denied entry by the man who'd stolen from my daughter. I knocked again, harder. "Nathan, open this door. We need to talk about—" The door opened 6 inches, stopped by the security chain. Nathan's face appeared in the gap, cold and controlled. "You're trespassing," he said quietly. "This is my house." "Not yet, it isn't. The probate won't finish for months. Until then, I'm the legal resident, and I'm asking you to leave." "I want to see Owen, and I told you he's not available. Now leave or I'll call the police." "The police? I'm his grandmother." "You're harassing us. Owen is my son. I decide who he sees and when. The law is very clear on that. So unless you want me to file for a restraining order, I suggest you get off my porch." He closed the door. The deadbolt clicked. I stood there shaking with rage and helplessness, then walked back to my car. As I pulled away, I saw a curtain move upstairs. A small face at the window, Owen watching me leave. My heart broke all over again. 3 days later, I tried again. This time I came in the morning hoping to catch them before school. Nathan's car was gone, but Michelle's Subaru sat in the driveway, the Subaru that was also legally mine now. I rang the doorbell, waited. Nothing. I was about to leave when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Grandma Owen's voice small and scared. "Owen, sweetheart, are you okay? Are you home? I'm outside." "Dad's not here. He left early," he said. Owen's voice dropped to a whisper. "He said I'm not supposed to call you, but I miss you, Grandma. I miss Mom. Can you come get me? Please?" Tears stung my eyes. "Baby, I'm trying. I'm right outside your house, but—" "Mrs. Brennan," a different voice, female, young. "This is Amber Owen's babysitter. Mr. Sterling left instructions not to let anyone in. I'm sorry, but I'm his grandmother." "I know, but Mr. Sterling was very clear. He said—" She lowered her voice. "He said if you showed up, I should call him immediately or I'd lose my job. I'm sorry. I'm just the babysitter." The line went dead. I sat in my car outside the house where my daughter had lived, where my grandson was, right now, 50 feet away, and I couldn't reach him. That afternoon, Owen called again, this time from his own phone. "Grandma, Owen, honey. Grandma, can you—" His voice broke into sobs. "Can you come get me? I don't want to be here anymore. Dad's always angry and he's never home and I'm scared and I miss Mom so much. I'm coming, sweetheart. I'm going to—" "Owen," Nathan's voice in the background, sharp and loud. "Who are you calling?" "Just Grandma, Give me the phone, now." I heard rustling, Owen's protest cut short. Then Nathan's voice came on the line. "Listen to me very carefully, Catherine." His voice was low, dangerous. "Stop calling. Stop coming to the house. Stop interfering. He's crying. He asked me to—" "He's a child. He's grieving. He doesn't know what he wants. He wants his grandmother. What he wants is irrelevant. I'm his father. I make the decisions. And if you keep this up, I swear to God, I'll make sure you never speak to him again. I'll change his number. I'll file a restraining order. I'll tell the court you're harassing us, that you're unstable, that Michelle was right to cut you out of inside me. Michelle left me everything because she knew what you are. You don't know anything." His voice turned cold. "Stay away from my son, Catherine. This is your final warning." The line went dead. I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone, and for the first time since Michelle died, I felt truly defeated. What could I do? Nathan was Owen's legal father. I had no custody rights, no visitation rights, nothing. The doorbell rang. Dorothy Fletcher stood on my porch with a casserole dish and a look of determination on her 72-year-old face. "I saw you sitting in your car outside Michelle's house this morning," she said, walking past me into the kitchen without waiting for an invitation. "You looked like you were going to drive through the garage door, so I made lasagna." Despite everything, I almost smiled. "Dorothy, sit." She pointed at a chair. "Eat, then tell me what that son of a bitch is doing to keep you from your grandson." I told her everything, the blocked calls, the locked doors, Owen's tearful voice on the phone. By the end, Dorothy's face was set in hard lines. "That man," she said, "needs to be stopped. I don't know how. He's Owen's father. The law also says Owen has a right to a safe home. And from what you've told me, that boy isn't safe. I don't have proof, just Michelle's letter and—" My phone rang. Andrew Morrison. "Mrs. Brennan," he said without preamble. "Can you come to my office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.? I was just there last week. This is different. There's a safe at Michelle's architecture firm. She left something there, something you need to see." "What kind of something?" "Evidence," Morrison said. "Everything Michelle discovered about Nathan. Bank records, surveillance photos, documents. Things that change everything." My heart started pounding. "Can't you just bring it to me?" "No. It has to be opened with a code. Michelle told me you'd know it." "A code I don't—" "She said you'd figure it out. 9 a.m. tomorrow, Mrs. Brennan. Brennan Design Studio, 412 Southwest 13th Avenue. Don't be late." He hung up. I looked at Dorothy, then at my phone, then at the cold lasagna on the table. "What did he say?" Dorothy asked. "He said Michelle left me evidence. Everything I need to fight Nathan." "Then what are you waiting for?" I stood, feeling something shift inside me. The defeat lifting, the determination returning. Michelle had prepared for this. She'd known Nathan would try to isolate Owen. She'd known I'd need proof. And she'd left it for me. "I'm not waiting," I said. "I'm going to war." Brennan Design Studio, 412 Southwest 13th Avenue. The next morning, I discovered the secrets my daughter had died protecting. Michelle's office occupied the second floor of a converted warehouse in the Pearl District, all exposed brick and industrial windows. Her name was still on the door, Brennan Design Studio Principal Architect, and seeing it made my throat tighten. She'd opened this practice 5 years ago, her dream made real. Andrew Morrison met me in the lobby. "Mrs. Brennan, thank you for coming. You said there was a safe. This way." He led me through the main workspace, drafting tables, architectural models, mood boards frozen in mid-project, to Michelle's private office. A man stood waiting there, mid-50s ex-military bearing, wearing jeans and a leather jacket. "This is Raymond Cole," Morrison said. "He's a private investigator. Michelle hired him in June." Cole extended his hand. "Ma'am, I'm sorry for your loss. Your daughter was a remarkable woman. You investigated Nathan." "At her request, yes. Once she knew what to look for." He gestured to Michelle's desk, where a small floor safe sat, exposed, the carpet rolled back. "She kept all the evidence here. Said only one person would know the combination." I stared at the safe's digital keypad. "I don't know any—" "She said it was a date," Morrison prompted. "Something important to you both. A date." I thought about Michelle's birthday, my birthday, Robert's birthday. None felt right. Michelle would have chosen something that mattered most. Then I knew. "Owen's birthday," I whispered. "March 15th, 2013. I knelt and entered 0315213. The safe beeped, the lock clicked open. Inside were 3 manila folders, a leather journal, and a USB drive. Morrison pulled them out, carefully spread them across Michelle's desk. "Your daughter was very thorough. She documented everything." He opened the first folder. Bank statements. My daughter's personal checking account at U.S. Bank. I saw the balance in January 2022, $132,847. Then I saw what happened next. April 12th, minus $15,000. Memo transfer. April 29th, minus $18,500. Memo transfer. May 15th, minus $22,000. Memo transfer. June 3rd, minus $14,800. Memo transfer. June 24th, minus $15,200. Memo transfer. On and on through July. By August, the account held $47,293. $85,000, Morrison said quietly. Withdrawn over 4 months. All transfers to an account Nathan controlled. He stole from her while she was dying. Yes. The second folder held stock certificates. Pacific Holdings Intel Nike blue chip stocks Robert had left Michelle years ago. The certificates were stamped, redeemed in red ink. June 18, 2022, Cole said. Nathan sold $120,000 worth of stocks from Michelle's portfolio. He had power of attorney for financial matters. She'd granted it when they married, so the brokerage processed it without question. I felt sick. She trusted him. She did, until she looked at the account statement and realized what he'd done. The third folder made my hands shake. Mortgage documents. A refinance application for the Laurelhurst house dated May 2, 2022. Amount $780,000. Borrower signatures Michelle Brennan and Nathan Sterling. Except Michelle's signature was wrong. I'd seen my daughter's signature 1,000 times, the looping M, the precise flourish at the end. This was close, but not right. The slant was off. Forgery, Morrison said. Nathan refinanced the house without Michelle's knowledge. Online application, electronic signature, everything done remotely during the pandemic. By the time Michelle found out the money was gone. Gone where? Cole opened his laptop, pulled up a spreadsheet. This is what I traced. Nathan has a gambling problem, Mrs. Brennan. A serious one. He showed me online casino accounts. N. Sterling, registered at offshore sites. BetKing Global Casino Lucky Spin. Transaction histories going back to 2020. Deposits, losses, more deposits, more losses. Over 3 years, he's lost approximately $400,000, Cole said. And that's just what I could trace. There's probably more. I stared at the numbers, my mind reeling. $400,000. Gambled away while Michelle raised their son, worked 60-hour weeks, built her business. The stock sale, the bank withdrawals, the mortgage. All of it went to cover his gambling debts, Morrison said. He was in deep with some very unpleasant people. High-interest loans from unlicensed lenders, the kind who send collectors if you don't pay. Cole pulled out photographs. Nathan entering a building in downtown Portland, a neon dragon sign above the door. Nathan at a blackjack table, chips stacked in front of him. Nathan in a parking garage handing an envelope to a hard-looking man in a suit. Lucky Dragon Casino, Cole said. These were taken in August, 2 months before your daughter died. She asked me to document his movements whenever he claimed to be working late. He told Michelle he was showing properties, Morrison said, building his real estate business. Instead, he was gambling. I picked up the leather journal, Michelle's handwriting on the cover, private. Go ahead, Morrison said gently. She wanted you to read it. I opened to a page dated July 18, 2022. I found the mortgage papers today. $780,000. My signature, but I never signed anything. I confronted Nathan tonight. He said I must have forgotten that the cancer was affecting my memory. He actually said that. Used my dying brain as an excuse for his forgery. I don't know who I married. August 2nd, 2022. Raymond confirmed it. Online gambling. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Nathan has been stealing from me for years, not months. The college fund, the renovation budget, the investment opportunities he asked me to fund, all of it went to casinos. I feel like such a fool. August 15th, 2022. I told him I wanted a divorce. He laughed. Actually laughed. Said no lawyer would side with a dying woman over a devoted husband. Said he'd get full custody of Owen and I'd die alone without ever seeing my son again. I'm scared. Not of dying, I've made peace with that. But scared of what happens to Owen when I'm gone. September 28th, 2022. I updated my will today. Andrew says it's airtight. Nathan will get the insurance money, $750,000, which should cover his debts and keep him from destroying Owen's life completely. But everything else goes to Mom, the house he remortgaged, the cars, Owen's trust. If I can't protect my son myself, maybe I can give Mom the weapons to fight for him. I hope it's enough. October 10th, 2022. I'm out of time. I can feel it. The pain is constant now. I'm writing Mom a letter tonight telling her everything. Andrew will give it to her after I'm gone. Owen, if you ever read this, I'm so sorry, baby. Sorry I couldn't stay. Sorry I chose a man who turned out to be a monster. But your grandmother is strong. Trust her. She'll keep you safe. I love you more than anything in this world. The journal entry ended there. 5 days later, Michelle was dead. I closed the journal, tears streaming down my face. That's $1.4 million, Morrison said quietly. $85,000 in cash withdrawals, $120,000 in stocks, $780,000 in mortgage fraud, plus the $400,000 gambling losses. Nathan Sterling destroyed your daughter's financial security while she was dying of cancer. Can we prosecute him? My voice was hard. The forgery, that's a felony, isn't it? It is. But Mrs. Brennan, there's something else. Morrison exchanged a glance with Cole. Something Michelle discovered in October right before she died. Something she didn't have time to investigate fully. He pulled out the USB drive, plugged it into Michelle's computer. Video files appeared, dated October 5th, October 7th, October 9th. Security cameras, Cole said. Michelle had them installed in the house. She wanted to know what Nathan was doing when she wasn't home. What she found... He trailed off, his jaw tight. What I demanded. What did she find? Morrison met my eyes. His expression was grim. She found out what kind of father Nathan really is. And Mrs. Brennan... He paused. It's worse than the gambling, much worse. Before I reveal what Michelle discovered, the videos that would expose Nathan, completely comment, still here below. I need to know you're ready for this. And a reminder, while some details are dramatized for impact, the core message about protecting children is very real. If you'd prefer to stop now, that's okay. I thought I'd seen the worst. I was wrong. Morrison clicked on the first video file, kitchen_cam_October 5th _11:47 am.mp4. The screen showed Michelle's kitchen from a high angle. The nanny cam must have been hidden in the smoke detector. Owen sat at the kitchen table in his school uniform, his backpack still on his shoulders. He looked thin, his face pale. Nathan stood at the counter, scrolling through his phone, a coffee mug in his other hand. Dad. Owen's voice was small. I'm hungry. Can I have lunch? It's not lunchtime yet. Nathan didn't look up. But I didn't eat breakfast. You forgot to... I didn't forget anything. You were supposed to get yourself cereal. We're out of cereal. I checked. Then eat something else. There's nothing else. Can you make me... Owen! Nathan's voice turned sharp. I'm working. Figure it out yourself. But Dad, enough. Nathan grabbed his keys. I have a showing in 20 minutes. There's crackers in the pantry. Eat those. I don't want crackers. I want... Then don't eat. Nathan walked out. The front door slammed. On the screen, Owen sat motionless for a long moment. Then his small shoulders began to shake. He was crying silently alone in the empty kitchen. Finally, he slid off his chair and walked to the pantry. Came back with a sleeve of saltines. Ate them slowly, mechanically, tears running down his face. The video ended. I stared at the blank screen, my hands clenched so tight my nails drew blood. That was October 5th, Morrison said quietly. A Thursday. Michelle was at a doctor's appointment. Nathan was supposed to be home with Owen during remote learning day. He left a 9-year-old alone. Yes, and that wasn't the worst day. He clicked the second file, living_room_cam_October 7 _1845.mp4. This time, the camera showed the living room and front hallway. The timestamp read 6:45 p.m. Owen sat on the couch doing homework. Nathan came down the stairs dressed in dark jeans and a collared shirt, going out clothes. I'll be back later, Nathan said, checking his phone. Owen looked up. Where are you going? Out. But Mom said you're supposed to stay with me when she has her night appointments. She said, your mother's not here. I'm in charge. Nathan grabbed his jacket. You'll be fine. Can I come with you? No. But I don't want to be alone. What if... Owen, you're 9 years old. You're not a baby. Watch TV, do your homework, go to bed by 9. I'll be back before you wake up. Before I wake up, that's like morning. Dad, please. The front door closed. Nathan was gone. Owen stood in the empty living room, his homework forgotten. He walked to the window, watched his father's taillights disappear. Morrison fast-forwarded. 7:15 p.m. Owen watching TV. 7:48 p.m. Owen in the kitchen, opening the freezer, pulling out a frozen pizza. He was trying to make himself dinner, Cole said. 8:32 p.m. Owen opening the oven, reaching for the pizza stone. Then his hand jerked back and he screamed a high, terrified sound that made my heart stop. He ran to the sink, turned on cold water, held his hand under the stream, crying, gasping. He'd burned himself on the oven rack. Morrison slowed the playback to normal speed. Owen grabbed his phone with his good hand, dialed. Waited. No answer. Dialed again. 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 6 times he called his father. 6 times Nathan didn't answer. At 9:17 p.m. Owen gave up. He wrapped his burned hand in a wet dish towel, curled up on the couch, and cried himself to sleep. The timestamp jumped to 3:20 a.m. The front door opened. Nathan walked in, stumbling slightly. He glanced at Owen on the couch, didn't check the boy's hand, didn't wake him, didn't apologize. Just walked upstairs to bed. The video ended. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I saw Owen's terrified face, heard his scream, watched him call his father over and over, while Nathan was at some casino, gambling away my daughter's money, leaving his 9-year-old son alone and injured. There's a medical record, too, Morrison said, opening another file. From August, Owen had an asthma attack at school severe enough that they called an ambulance. The ER doctor noted bruising on Owen's upper arms consistent with being grabbed forcefully. They filed a report with Child Protective Services, CPS, and they didn't. The investigation was closed, Cole said. Nathan was very convincing. Told them Owen bruises easily, that Michelle was overprotective because of her illness, that everything was fine. CPS did a home visit, saw a clean house and a polite child, and closed the case. I felt sick. Michelle knew. She knew all of this. Morrison handed me the journal again, open to October 8th. I came home early today and found the kitchen camera footage. Nathan left Owen alone for 4 hours on Thursday. 4 hours. Owen ate crackers for lunch because there was nothing else. I confronted Nathan. He said I was overreacting. Said Owen needs to learn independence. Said I'm too sick to think clearly. I'm putting cameras everywhere. October 10th. The video from Friday night. I can't stop watching it. Owen burned his hand and Nathan wasn't there. Wasn't there. My baby was hurt and scared and alone. Nathan came home at 3 a.m. I smelled alcohol and perfume on him. I've called Andrew. I'm changing my will tomorrow. October 14th, one more day. I'm meeting Mom for lunch tomorrow at noon. I'll tell her everything, the gambling, the money, Owen. I'll show her the videos. She'll know what to do. I just have to make it one more day. But she hadn't made it. Michelle died at 4:03 a.m. on October 15th, 12 hours before our lunch. 12 hours before she could tell me. She ran out of time, I whispered. Yes, Morrison said, but Mrs. Brennan Owen hasn't. Not yet. I looked up at him. Then at Cole, then at the frozen image on the screen, my grandson alone and crying, holding his burned hand. These videos, I said, my voice steady, now cold with purpose. Are they admissible in court? Yes. Michelle installed them legally in her own home. They're dated, time-stamped, unedited. And the CPS report, I have a copy. It shows a pattern they investigated once, but with new evidence they'd reopen. The medical records, all documented. I stood up. Then we file for emergency custody, today. Morrison nodded. I've already prepared the paperwork. We can file this afternoon. With this evidence, the neglect, the endangerment, the financial crimes, you have a strong case. Not strong, I said, looking at Owen's face on the screen. Overwhelming. I thought about Nathan's threat, you'll never see him again. He was wrong. I was going to take his son away. I was going to use every weapon Michelle had left me, and I was going to win. Let's go, I said. Owen's been alone long enough. I spent that night watching the videos over and over. Michelle's journal open beside me on the kitchen table. The red numbers on the microwave clock blinked past midnight, 12:47 a.m., then 1:15, then 2:03. But sleep never came. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Owen's face, terrified in the empty house, crying for his father, who wouldn't answer, staring at his burned hand with no adult to help him. The house was silent except for the rain drumming against the windows. I replayed the second video, October 7th, Nathan leaving Owen alone, and watched my grandson try to cook himself dinner at 9 years old. The scream when the oven rack burned his palm. 6 unanswered phone calls to his father. Owen hasn't run out of time, not yet. Morrison's words echoed in my mind, but as I sat alone in my dark kitchen, doubt crept in. I was 67 years old, a widow, a retired judge who hadn't raised a child in decades. What made me think I could win custody of a 9-year-old boy from his own father? What made me think I was strong enough for this fight? Nathan had money, or he would once the life insurance paid out. $750,000. He could hire expensive lawyers, drag this through the courts for months. He'd attack my age, my health, my ability to care for an active child. And maybe he'd be right. I thought about Michelle's letter, "Mom, I'm giving this fight to you," and how I'd never seen any of it coming. My brilliant daughter dying while investigating her husband and I hadn't noticed. Hadn't noticed she was sick. Hadn't noticed Owen was suffering. You failed, Michelle. How can you possibly save Owen? I stood and paced the kitchen, my bare feet cold on the tile. The house felt too big, too empty. After Robert died 10 years ago, I'd lived here alone. Could a child live here? Could Owen be happy in this quiet house where the only sound was the ticking grandfather clock? I stopped in front of the refrigerator. Among the recycling schedule and the church newsletter, there was a photo held up by a magnet shaped like the state of Oregon Michelle at 8 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding up a trophy from her school science fair. I'd taken that picture in our backyard on a June afternoon. She'd looked at me like I could fix anything, like I was the strongest person in the world. "Mom, Owen isn't safe with Nathan. Please don't let him take him away." Michelle had trusted me with this, her last wish, her final act of love for her son. I pulled the photo off the fridge and held it under the kitchen light. That little girl had grown into a woman who'd tried to protect her child even as she was dying. She'd gathered evidence, changed her will, documented everything, all while her body was failing. She'd fought for Owen until her very last breath. And now it was my turn. I couldn't save my daughter, but I could save her son. At 6:30 the next morning, my neighbor Dorothy Fletcher knocked on my door with a basket of warm blueberry muffins and a thermos of coffee. Dorothy was 72, a retired school teacher with silver hair and steady, no-nonsense warmth. "I saw your lights on all night, Catherine," she said, setting the basket on my counter. "You look like you haven't slept." I told her everything, the videos, the journal, Michelle's cancer and Nathan's betrayal, and my decision, the terrifying, necessary decision to sue for custody of Owen. Dorothy listened without interrupting, her weathered hands wrapped around her coffee mug. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're the strongest woman I know," she said. "You raised Michelle on your own after Robert got sick. You became a judge in a man's world. You've buried a husband and a daughter, and you're still standing. That little boy needs you, Catherine, and you are more than strong enough." Her words steadied me. For the first time since I'd opened Michelle's letter, I felt something other than fear. "What if I'm too old?" I whispered. "Catherine Brennan." Dorothy's voice turned sharp. "I'm 72. I still garden. I still volunteer. I still run circles around people half my age. You're 67. You're healthy. You're sharp as a tack, and you have something Nathan will never have." "What's that?" "Love. Real love. Not control, not ownership love. Owen knows that. Even at 9 years old, he knows the difference." I thought about Owen's face at the funeral, the way he'd thrown his arms around me, the way he'd whispered, "I miss Mom," before Nathan pulled him away. Dorothy was right. Owen needed me. And I needed him, needed a reason to keep fighting, needed someone to fill this empty house with laughter again. At 8 a.m., I called Andrew Morrison. "I'm ready," I said. "I want to file for emergency custody of Owen today." There was a pause. Then Morrison's voice, measured and serious. "Catherine, you need to understand what you're walking into. Nathan will fight this with everything he has. He'll attack your age, your health, your motives. This will be brutal." "I know. The court process could take months. You'll have to prove Nathan is unfit. He'll retaliate. He'll make this as ugly as possible." "I understand. And even with everything we have, the videos, the financial crimes, the journal, there's no guarantee. Family courts favor biological parents. We'll have to overcome a very high legal bar. I looked at my laptop screen frozen on the frame. From October 7th, Owen standing alone in the dark kitchen, tears streaming down his face, his burned hand pressed against his chest. "Andrew," I said quietly, I watched a 9-year-old boy scream in pain and call his father 6 times while Nathan was at a casino. I watched that same boy eat crackers for lunch because his father couldn't be bothered to feed him. I read my daughter's journal begging someone to protect her son. I paused, my voice hardening. Nathan Sterling is not a father. He's a gambler, a thief, and a neglectful parent. And I will not let him destroy Owen the way he destroyed my daughter. So yes, I'm walking into a brutal fight, but I'm ready. Morrison was silent for a moment. Then I heard papers rustling. "All right," he said. "Come to my office at 10. I'll have the emergency custody petition ready to file. We'll need your testimony, the videos, the journal, the financial evidence, everything. Are you prepared to go to court as early as next week?" "Yes." "Good, because once we file this, Nathan will know we're coming for him. The war starts today, Catherine." "Good," I said. "Let's bring Owen home." I hung up and looked around my quiet kitchen. The empty house that would soon, if I fought hard enough, be filled with a 9-year-old's laughter and footsteps. I picked up Michelle's photo from the counter, the 8-year-old girl with the gap-toothed grin and the science fair trophy. "I've got him, baby," I whispered. "I won't let you down." Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Pale November sunlight streamed through the windows, lighting the kitchen gold. It felt like a promise. Before we could file, Nathan made the first move. The text came at 4:30 that afternoon while I was still at Morrison's office reviewing the custody petition. "Catherine, we need to talk. Le Pigeon 7 p.m. tonight. Come alone." I showed Morrison. He frowned. "It's a trap." "Probably." "Don't go." "I have to. If he's willing to negotiate." "Nathan Sterling doesn't negotiate. He manipulates." Morrison pulled out his phone, opened a recording app. "Oregon is a one-party consent state. You can legally record the conversation without his knowledge. Keep your phone in your purse, recording the entire time. Whatever he says, whatever he offers, we'll have it on tape." "What if he searches me?" "He won't. He thinks he's already won." So at 7 p.m., I walked into Le Pigeon, a small French bistro in the East Burnside neighborhood, my phone hidden in my purse recording. Nathan sat at a corner table away from other diners. He'd chosen the location carefully, quiet, discreet, no witnesses to whatever he planned to say. He stood when I approached, gestured to the chair across from him. Always the gentleman, always performing. "Catherine, thank you for coming." I sat without responding. He ordered a glass of Bordeaux. I asked for water. When the waiter left, Nathan leaned back in his chair, studying me with cold calculation. "Let's be honest with each other," he said. "You're planning to sue for custody. Andrew Morrison has been making calls, gathering documents. You think you can take Owen away from me." "Owen isn't safe with you." "That's a matter of perspective." He sipped his wine. "You see neglect. I see a father teaching his son independence. You see danger. I see age-appropriate resilience. You left a 9-year-old alone overnight. Once. One time, Catherine. I had an emergency business meeting in Seattle. The babysitter canceled last minute. I made a judgment call. Does that make me an unfit parent, or does it make me a single father doing his best in an impossible situation?" His voice was smooth, reasonable. This was the Nathan who'd charmed Michelle, the Nathan who closed real estate deals, the Nathan who could spin any story to his advantage. You let him burn his hand. I wasn't there. I came home as soon as I could. These things happen, Catherine. Children get hurt. It doesn't mean their parents are monsters. The videos will show exactly what I want them to show. A grieving child, a stressed father. Mistakes, yes, but nothing criminal. Nothing that justifies taking a boy away from his only surviving parent. He set down his wine glass. "Which brings me to why we're here." He pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket, spread it on the table between us. I recognized Michelle's handwriting on the deed, the Laurelhurst house. "I'm prepared to offer you a deal," Nathan said. "A peaceful resolution that benefits everyone, especially Owen." "I'm listening." "Sign over the house." The cars, the bank account, everything Michelle left you in that ridiculous will. Give it all back to me, and in return, I'll grant you visitation with Owen every other weekend. Supervised at first, but eventually unsupervised once I see you're not trying to poison him against me. I stared at him. You want me to give you everything in exchange for being allowed to see my own grandson? It's not your grandson I'm worried about, Catherine. It's you. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. Let's be honest. You're 67 years old. How much longer do you realistically have? 5 years? 10? What happens to Owen when you're 75 and he's a teenager? When you can't keep up with him anymore? When you get sick? When you... I'm perfectly healthy. For now, but you're old, Catherine. Old and alone. Owen needs stability. He needs a young, active parent who can keep up with him, not a grandmother playing house. The words hit like slaps, each one calculated to wound. You have 3 days. Nathan continued tapping the document. Sign this quitclaim deed transferring the house back to me. Sign the car titles. Transfer the bank funds. Do it voluntarily and I'll be generous. You can be part of Owen's life. Refuse and I'll fight you in court with everything I have. You stole from Michelle. You gambled away her money. Prove it. His smile was cold. You have some bank statements, some accusations. I have explanations for all of it. Investment losses, medical bills. Michelle's cancer treatment was expensive, Catherine. I was trying to keep us afloat while my wife was dying. Any judge will understand that. You left Owen alone. Once, and I've already explained why. Meanwhile, you're a 67-year-old woman with no experience raising children in the modern era. You have no spouse, no support system, no backup plan if something happens to you. Who do you think a judge will favor, a grieving father trying to protect his son or an aging grandmother with a vendetta? He pushed the document closer. 3 days, Catherine. Sign it or you'll never see Owen again. I'll make sure of it. I'll move out of state. I'll change his school. I'll tell him you abandoned him, that you cared more about money than about him, and he'll believe me because children always believe their parents. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat on the table to steady them. And if I refuse, Nathan's expression turned ice cold. Then you'll die alone wondering what happened to your grandson, wondering if he even remembers you. Is that really what Michelle would have wanted? For you to destroy her son's life out of stubbornness? He dropped 2 20s on the table. 3 days after that, the offer expires. Choose wisely. He walked out, leaving me sitting alone with his ultimatum and my hidden recording. I waited until he was gone, then pulled out my phone with shaking hands. The recording had captured everything, every threat, every manipulation, every cold calculation. I called Morrison from the parking lot. He tried to extort me, I said. Offered me visitation in exchange for signing over everything Michelle left me. Threatened to disappear with Owen if I refuse. Told me I'm too old to raise a child. Did you get it recorded? Every word. Morrison was silent for a moment. Then, Catherine, this is exactly what we needed. Using a child as leverage in a property dispute, that's extortion. Threatening to flee the jurisdiction, that's evidence of flight risk. This recording could win the case before we even get to trial. When do we file? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. emergency custody petition. I'll request an immediate hearing with Judge Patricia Donovan. She has a reputation for not tolerating any behavior that endangers children. He paused. Once we file, Nathan will be served within hours. He'll know you rejected his deal. He'll know we're coming for him. Catherine, you need to be ready. He's going to retaliate. I'm ready, I said, and this time I meant it. November 8th, 2:47 p.m., Nathan Sterling's office. That's when the process server handed him the emergency custody petition. I wasn't there, of course, but Morrison called me at 3:15 to confirm service had been completed. It's done, he said. Nathan's been served. Judge Donovan granted the temporary order. Owen is to be placed in your custody immediately pending the hearing on November 12th. 4 days, I whispered. 4 days. Nathan's attorney has until then to respond. In the meantime, Owen stays with you. A social worker will bring him to your house by 6:30 tonight. I hung up and looked around my quiet living room. In 3 hours, my grandson would be here, living here, sleeping in Michelle's old bedroom upstairs. I started preparing, made up the bed with fresh sheets, cleared space in the closet, set out towels in the bathroom, made sure there was food a 9-year-old would eat: macaroni and cheese, chicken nuggets, apple juice, things I hadn't bought in years. The call came at 4:52 p.m. Nathan's voice exploded through the phone before I could even say hello. "You vindictive, manipulative—" He was shouting, his voice raw with rage. How dare you file that pack of lies I'm his father. You have no right." "Nathan, don't you dare interrupt me. You think you can just take my son? You think some biased judge is going to believe your bullshit story about neglect? I was grieving, Catherine. My wife died. I made a few mistakes and you're using them to destroy my family." His voice cracked. For a moment, I thought he might actually be crying, but then I heard the cold fury underneath. "Performance. Always performance. You're going to regret this." He said, quieter now, more dangerous. "I'm going to expose every lie you've told. I'm going to prove you manipulated Michelle when she was dying, that you poisoned her against me, that you're an unfit guardian who's too old and too bitter to raise a child. And when I win, and I will win, you will never see Owen again. Do you understand me? Never. Are you finished?" My voice was steady. "Fuck you, Catherine." The line went dead. I sat on the couch, my hands shaking, and waited for my grandson. Morrison arrived at 6:28 p.m. with a woman in her 30s carrying a briefcase, Diane Cooper, the court-appointed social worker. And behind them, small and thin in a too-big jacket, was Owen. He looked terrified. "Mrs. Brennan," Diane said, stepping inside. "I'm Diane Cooper from Child Protective Services. I'll be supervising the transition and checking in regularly over the next 4 days." I barely heard her. I was staring at Owen, who stood frozen in my doorway, clutching a small backpack, his eyes red from crying. "Owen, sweetheart." "Grandma." His voice was tiny. Did I do something wrong?" My heart broke. I knelt down my knees, protesting, and opened my arms. He hesitated, then ran to me, burying his face in my shoulder. "No, baby, no, you didn't do anything wrong. Dad said—" His voice was muffled. "Dad said I had to go away because I was bad, because I made Mom sick, because I'm—" "Stop." I pulled back, held his face in my hands. "Owen, listen to me. None of this is your fault. Your dad is going through a hard time. And right now you're going to stay here with me for a little while, just until things get sorted out." "Okay." He nodded, but I saw the confusion and fear in his eyes. This was a child who'd lost his mother 4 weeks ago and was now being taken from his father. Nothing I could say would make that okay. Diane conducted her inspection, checked the bedroom, the smoke detectors, the food in the fridge. She asked Owen some gentle questions about how he was feeling, whether he felt safe. Owen answered in monosyllables, his hand gripping mine. "Everything looks good," Diane finally said. "I'll check in tomorrow afternoon. Owen, if you need anything, you can call me anytime, okay?" She handed him a card with her number. After they left, I made Owen dinner, chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, but he barely ate. He sat at the kitchen table, pushing food around his plate, his shoulders hunched. "Would you like to see your room?" I asked gently. He followed me upstairs to Michelle's old bedroom. I'd kept it mostly the same over the years, the same white furniture, the same blue curtains. On the desk were some of Michelle's old architectural drawings framed. On the bookshelf, her childhood books. Owen stopped in the doorway, staring. "This was Mom's room," he whispered. "Yes, when she was your age. I thought maybe you'd like to stay here, to feel close to her." He walked slowly to the closet where I'd cleared space for his things. But he wasn't looking at the empty hangers. He was staring at something in the back, a cardboard box labeled Michelle, High School. "Can I—" "Of course." He pulled out the box, opened it carefully. Inside were Michelle's old things, yearbooks, photos, awards. And at the bottom, a soft gray cardigan she'd worn constantly her senior year. Owen lifted it out, held it to his face. "It smells like her," he said, his voice breaking. "It still smells like Mom." Then he was crying deep, wrenching sobs, and I held him while he clutched his mother's sweater and cried for everything he'd lost. Later, after he'd calmed down and gotten ready for bed, I tucked him in. He was wearing his pajamas, but he'd kept the cardigan, had it folded beside his pillow. "Grandma," he said as I turned off the light. Is Dad mad at me?" I chose my words carefully. "Your dad is going through a very difficult time. But this isn't about you being bad or good. This is about adults making sure you're taken care of properly. Do you understand?" He nodded, but I saw the doubt in his eyes. Saw the weight of blame he was carrying. "Owen, I need you to know something. Your mom loved you more than anything in the world, and so do I. You're safe here, I promise." "Okay," he whispered, but as I closed the door, I heard him crying again quietly into his mother's sweater. I went downstairs and called Morrison. "How is he?" Morrison asked. "Terrified, confused. Nathan told him this was his fault." "That bastard." Morrison paused. "The hearing is Monday, November 12th at 10 a.m., 4 days. Nathan's lawyer will come out swinging. Are you ready?" I looked up at the ceiling toward the room where my grandson was crying himself to sleep. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's finish this. 4 days." That's all we had before facing Judge Donovan. Day 1, Thursday, November 9th. I woke Owen at 7 a.m., made him breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast orange juice. Simple things, normal things, things a child should be able to count on. He ate slowly, watching me like he expected the routine to shatter at any moment. "You have school today," I said gently. "I'll drive you." "Dad always forgot," he said quietly. I had to take the bus a lot. My heart clenched, but I kept my voice steady. "Well, I won't forget, I promise." Morrison had arranged for Owen to stay at his current school, Laurelhurst Elementary, just 10 minutes away. Continuity, he'd said. Stability. The things Judge Donovan would be looking for. Owen's teacher, Sarah Collins, met me at drop-off. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes. "Mrs. Brennan?" she said quietly, pulling me aside. "I wanted you to know Owen seems different today, more present. He's usually so withdrawn, but this morning he actually smiled at another student." "Really?" "Really." She squeezed my hand. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." That afternoon, I picked Owen up and took him for ice cream. He got chocolate, I got vanilla. We sat outside Powell's Books on a bench watching people pass. "Grandma," he said, licking his cone, "how long can I stay with you?" I chose my words carefully. "We have a court hearing on Monday. The judge will decide then." "What if she says I have to go back to Dad?" "Then we'll keep fighting." "But Owen," I turned to face him, "I need you to know that no matter what happens, I'm not giving up on you. Ever." He nodded, but his eyes were scared. Day 2. Friday, November 10th. Dr. Karen Bradley came to Morrison's office at 2 p.m. She was a child psychologist, court-appointed neutral. Her evaluation would carry significant weight with Judge Donovan. She interviewed Owen alone for 90 minutes while I waited in the lobby, my stomach in knots. When she finally emerged, Owen looked exhausted. "Mrs. Brennan," Dr. Bradley said, gesturing to Morrison's office. "Could we speak privately?" Inside, she opened her laptop and pulled up notes. "Owen is a deeply traumatized child," she said without preamble. "He's grieving his mother, which is normal, but he's also exhibiting signs of chronic neglect and emotional abuse. He describes being left alone, frequently being told his mother's death was his fault, being punished for crying or asking for attention. I felt sick. He's also," Dr. Bradley continued, "remarkably resilient. In just 3 days with you, he's already showing improvement. Better eye contact, less defensive body language. He told me, and I'm quoting, 'Grandma makes me feel safe.'" My eyes filled with tears. "My recommendation to the court will be that Owen remain in your custody. Mr. Sterling needs extensive therapy and parenting classes before he should have unsupervised access to his son. Possibly supervised visitation only pending his completion of those requirements." Morrison looked at me. "That's a strong endorsement, Catherine." "It's the right one," Dr. Bradley said. "That child needs you." Day 3, Saturday, November 11th. Owen helped me make dinner, spaghetti and meatballs. He was quiet, focused on stirring the sauce, but I could tell something was on his mind. "Grandma," he finally said, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, sweetheart." Why did Mom never look at me, like really look at me? When I tried to talk to her near the end, she seemed distant. But Dad used to look at me. Before everything got bad, I set down my spoon and knelt beside him, meeting his eyes. Owen, your mom was very sick. The cancer made her tired and weak. But she loved you more than anything. She fought so hard to protect you, that's what all those cameras and documents were about. She saw you, baby. She always saw you. His lip trembled. I miss her so much, Grandma. It hurts all the time. I know, I miss her too. He threw his arms around my neck and buried his face in my shoulder. I love you so much, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart, so much. Later after dinner, Dorothy came over with chocolate chip cookies. She sat with Owen while I cleaned up, and I heard him actually laughing at one of her stories about her cats. When Dorothy left, she pulled me aside. Catherine, that boy looks at you like you're his whole world. You're doing something right. The night before, Sunday, November 11th, 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I sat in my living room in the dark going over Morrison's preparation notes for the 100th time. The evidence was strong. The videos, the journal, Michelle's letter, Dr. Bradley's evaluation. We had everything we needed. But Marcus Blackwell's email haunted me. Mrs. Catherine Brennan, age 67, widowed, lives alone, no experience raising children in modern era, limited income, health concerns typical of advanced age, no backup plan if she becomes incapacitated. What if the judge agreed? What if 4 days of safety was all I could give Owen? At 3 a.m., I went upstairs and opened Owen's door quietly. He was asleep, Michelle's gray cardigan clutched in his arms, his face peaceful in a way I'd never seen when Nathan had custody. Grandma makes me feel safe. I closed the door and went back downstairs. Made coffee I didn't want. Watched the sky slowly lighten through the kitchen window. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep entirely. 4 hours until the hearing. 4 hours until I'd stand in front of Judge Donovan and fight for my grandson's life. 4 hours to prove I was strong enough to keep the promise I'd made to Michelle. I thought about my daughter's letter. I'm giving this fight to you, Mom. You're the only person I trust, the only person strong enough. I looked at the photo on my fridge, Michelle at 8 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, believing I could fix anything. I hope you're right, baby, I whispered. I hope I'm strong enough. Outside, the sun was rising over Portland. The storm was about to break. November 12th, 2022. 9 a.m. courtroom, 4B, Multnomah County Courthouse. The battle for Owen's future began. Judge Patricia Donovan entered 60s gray hair pulled back severely, the kind of face that had seen every lie and excuse the family court system could produce. She surveyed the room with sharp eyes, then sat. Good morning, case number 2-FC-08847, in re-custody of Owen Michael Sterling, Mrs. Catherine Brennan petitioner versus Mr. Nathan Sterling respondent. Counselors, are we ready to proceed? Morrison stood. Ready, Your Honor. Marcus Blackwell rose, adjusting his expensive suit. Ready, Your Honor. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Morrison, my hands folded to hide their shaking. Across the aisle, Nathan sat perfectly composed in a dark suit and subdued tie, the picture of a grieving widower trying to hold his family together. His eyes were red-rimmed, though I noticed they were dry. Always performing. Mr. Blackwell, Judge Donovan said, your client has temporary custody. Mrs. Brennan filed for emergency removal. The burden is on her. But I'll hear your opening statement first. Blackwell stood all confidence and practiced sympathy. Your Honor, this is a tragic case. A woman lost her daughter, Michelle Brennan Sterling, just 4 weeks ago. My client, Nathan Sterling, lost his wife. And their 9-year-old son, Owen, lost his mother. Everyone in this courtroom is grieving. He paused, letting that sink in. But Mrs. Brennan's response to this tragedy has been to weaponize it, to use her daughter's death as an opportunity to seize control of her grandson, to replace the mother he lost, to push aside the father who's doing his best under impossible circumstances. I felt Morrison's hand on my arm, a warning to stay calm. Mrs. Brennan is 67 years old, a widow. She lives alone. She has no spouse, no support system. No backup plan should her health fail. She's asking this court to take a child from his biological father, a 36-year-old man in good health, financially stable, desperately trying to parent through grief and place him with an elderly woman whose own daughter kept secrets from her. He turned slightly toward me. Michelle Sterling's cancer was diagnosed in April. She died in October. 6 months, Your Honor. And Mrs. Brennan claims she never knew her daughter was sick. What does that tell us about their relationship? About her ability to care for a child who's already traumatized? Morrison stood. Objection, counsel is testifying. Sustained. Mr. Blackwell, confine yourself to facts. Of course, Your Honor. Blackwell smiled. The fact is simple. Owen belongs with his father. A father who's committed to counseling, to parenting classes, to doing whatever it takes to help his son heal. Not with a grandmother who's using grief as a weapon. He sat down. Judge Donovan looked at Morrison. Mr. Morrison. Morrison stood calm and measured. Your Honor, Mr. Blackwell is right about one thing. This is a tragic case. But the tragedy isn't Mrs. Brennan's love for her grandson. It's what Michelle Sterling discovered about her husband before she died. He opened his folder. In the months before her death, Michelle documented systematic neglect and endangerment of her son. She installed security cameras. She kept a journal. She hired a private investigator. She changed her will specifically to protect Owen from his father. And she left all of that evidence to her mother, not out of spite, but out of love. Out of terror for what would happen to her son once she was gone. Morrison approached the bench with a thick binder. Your Honor, I'm submitting Michelle's journal medical records showing Owen's untreated asthma attacks, a Child Protective Services report from August financial records showing Mr. Sterling stole over $1 million from his dying wife to cover gambling debts, and most importantly, video evidence of Mr. Sterling leaving his 9-year-old son home alone overnight. Judge Donovan took the binder, began flipping through it. Her expression darkened. Video evidence. Yes, Your Honor. Would the court like to view it now? She looked at Nathan, whose jaw had tightened. Mr. Sterling, did you leave your son home alone? Nathan stood. Your Honor, if I may explain. You'll have your turn, Mr. Sterling. Sit down. She looked at Morrison. Show me the video. Morrison set up his laptop, connected it to the courtroom's display screen. The bailiff dimmed the lights. This is October 7th, 2022, 8 days before Michelle's death. The video began. The timestamp read 6:45 p.m. Owen sat on the couch doing homework. Nathan came downstairs dressed to go out. I'll be back later. Where are you going? Out. But Mom said, your mother's not here. I'm in charge. You'll be fine. The front door closed. Nathan was gone. Morrison fast-forwarded through the evening. Owen alone. Owen trying to cook pizza. Owen burning his hand at 8:32 p.m., screaming, crying, running to the sink. The courtroom was absolutely silent. The video showed Owen calling his father once, twice, 6 times. No answer. Owen crying into the phone. Dad, please, I burned my hand. Please come home. No answer. The timestamp jumped to 3:20 a.m., 9 hours later. The front door opened. Nathan walked in, barely glanced at Owen asleep on the couch, and went upstairs to bed. Morrison stopped the video. The lights came back up. Judge Donovan's face was stone. Mr. Sterling, stand up. Nathan stood his composure, cracking. Did you leave your 9-year-old son alone from 6:45 p.m. until 3:20 a.m.? Your Honor, I had an emergency. Answer the question, yes or no. Yes, but... And during those 9 hours, your son burned his hand and called you 6 times. Did you answer? Silence. Did you answer, Mr. Sterling? I didn't hear the phone. I was... Where were you? Nathan hesitated. Blackwell whispered something urgent, but Nathan shook his head. I was at a business meeting. Morrison stood. Your Honor, I have surveillance footage from Lucky Dragon Casino showing Mr. Sterling at a blackjack table from 8 p.m. until 2:30 a.m. that night, while his son was injured and alone. He displayed the casino photo on the screen. Nathan in clear view chips stacked in front of him, a drink in his hand, laughing. The timestamp, 11:47 p.m., October 7th. The same night Owen had burned his hand. Judge Donovan stared at Nathan for a long moment. You were gambling, Your Honor. You left your 9-year-old son alone overnight so you could gamble, while your wife was dying of cancer. Is that correct? Nathan's face went white. It wasn't, I didn't... Sit down, Mr. Sterling. He sat, his hands shaking now. Across the aisle, I saw the mask slip saw cold calculation replace the grieving father performance. Judge Donovan held up her hand. We're taking a 15-minute recess. All parties remain in the building." She stood and walked out, her face grim. The courtroom erupted in low conversation. I turned to Morrison, who nodded slightly. "We're winning," he whispered. But I watched Nathan lean toward Blackwell, whispering urgently, his expression no longer composed, but desperate and angry. Morrison touched my arm. "He's realizing he's losing," he murmured. "That's when people become most dangerous." I looked at Nathan's face, at the calculation the rage barely contained, and felt a chill. What would a desperate man do to win? 15 minutes felt like hours. When Judge Donovan returned, her face gave nothing away. "Be seated," she said, settling back at the bench. "Mr. Morrison, you may continue." Morrison stood. "Your Honor, the video was only the beginning. I'd like to present evidence of Mr. Sterling's financial crimes against his dying wife." He approached the bench with a new folder. Between April and July 2022, while Michelle was dying of pancreatic cancer, Nathan Sterling withdrew $85,000 from her personal account. In June, he sold $120,000 in stock certificates without her knowledge. And in May, he forged her signature on a refinance application, taking out a $780,000 mortgage on her separately owned home. Objection. Blackwell was on his feet. "These are unproven allegations." "I have the documents right here," Morrison said calmly, handing them to the judge. "The original mortgage application with Michelle's forged signature, you can compare it to her actual signature on the will. Bank statements showing the withdrawals. Brokerage records showing the stock sales." Judge Donovan studied the papers, her expression darkening further. Total amount stolen approximately $1.4 million. "And where did this money go, Your Honor, to cover gambling debts?" "Mr. Sterling has lost over $400,000 in online casinos in the past 3 years." He pulled up the casino account records on the screen. "But that's not all. On November 7th, 5 days ago, Mr. Sterling attempted to extort Mrs. Brennan." "Objection." Blackwell again. "That's inflammatory. I have a recording, Your Honor." Morrison held up his phone. "Oregon is a one-party consent state. Mrs. Brennan legally recorded a conversation at Le Pigeon restaurant where Mr. Sterling demanded she sign over all assets, the house, the cars, the bank accounts, in exchange for permission to see her own grandson." Judge Donovan leaned forward. "Play it." Morrison connected his phone to the courtroom audio. Nathan's voice filled the room. "Sign over the house, the cars, the bank account. Everything Michelle left you. Give it all back to me, and in return, I'll grant you visitation with Owen. Every other weekend. You want me to give you everything in exchange for being allowed to see my own grandson? You're 67 years old. How much longer do you realistically have? 5 years. 10 Owen needs a young, active parent, not a grandmother playing house. And if I refuse, then you'll never see Owen again. I'll move out of state. I'll change his school. I'll tell him you abandoned him. Choose wisely." The recording ended. The courtroom was silent. Judge Donovan's face was stone-cold fury. "Mr. Sterling, that recording constitutes extortion under Oregon law. Using a child as leverage in a property dispute is a felony." Nathan's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Morrison continued. "Finally, Your Honor, I'd like to read from Michelle's journal. October 8th, just 1 week before she died." He opened the leather journal. "I told Nathan I knew about the gambling, that I was changing my will. He said if I did, he'd make sure I never saw Owen again, that he'd convince everyone I was mentally incompetent because of the cancer, that he'd use my own son as a weapon against me." Morrison closed the journal. Michelle Sterling spent her final weeks not grieving her own death, but protecting her son from the man she'd married. She gave her mother every weapon she'd need to fight this battle because she knew Nathan would use Owen as leverage. And she was right. He sat down. Judge Donovan looked at Nathan for a long moment. "Mr. Sterling, stand up." Nathan stood, his face pale. "I've been a family court judge for 18 years. I've seen neglect. I've seen abuse. I've seen parents who prioritize addiction over their children's safety. But rarely have I seen such a comprehensive pattern of endangerment combined with financial exploitation and emotional manipulation." She picked up the documents. "You left a 9-year-old child alone overnight while you gambled. You stole over $1 million from your dying wife. You forged her signature on legal documents. You attempted to extort Mrs. Brennan using her grandson as leverage. And according to your late wife's journal, you threatened to use Owen as a weapon if she dared protect herself. Nathan opened his mouth. She held up a hand. I'm not finished. Under Oregon law, child endangerment, which includes leaving a minor child alone overnight, is a criminal offense. I am forwarding a copy of this case file to the district attorney's office for potential prosecution. Nathan's face went white. As for custody, I am granting full legal and physical custody of Owen Michael Sterling to his grandmother, Catherine Brennan, effective immediately. Mr. Sterling, you are granted supervised visitation only 3 hours per week, supervised by a court-appointed monitor, contingent upon your completion of a parenting class and gambling addiction treatment program. She banged her gavel. This hearing is adjourned. The courtroom erupted. Morrison gripped my hand. We won, Catherine, we won. I should have felt relief, joy, victory. But as we gathered our papers and left the courtroom, Nathan intercepted us in the hallway. His lawyer had already disappeared, but Nathan stood alone, blocking our path. His face was twisted not with grief, but with cold, barely contained rage. You think you've won, he hissed. This isn't over. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and something in his expression changed. The rage smoothed away, replaced by an eerie calm. Actually, he said slowly, his voice suddenly unnaturally level, maybe you're right. Maybe Owen is better off with you. He stepped aside, let us pass. Morrison and I exchanged glances. Something was very wrong. That was too easy, Morrison muttered as we walked toward the exit. Why would he just give up? I looked back. Nathan stood in the hallway, phone to his ear, speaking in low, urgent tones. When he caught me watching, he smiled. Not a grieving father's smile, a predator's smile. Andrew, I said quietly, what just happened? I don't know, he said, but we need to find out, fast. 2 days later, Nathan's attorney called with an offer I never expected. Mrs. Brennan, Marcus Blackwell said over the phone, his voice carefully neutral. My client would like to meet with you and Mr. Morrison. He has a proposal. What kind of proposal? He'd prefer to discuss it in person. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. at Mr. Morrison's office. I hung up and immediately called Morrison. What do you think this is? I don't know, he said slowly. But Catherine, be careful. Nathan doesn't give up. He pivots. The next morning, Nathan arrived at Morrison's office in jeans and a casual shirt, no suit, no tie. He looked almost relaxed, which made my skin crawl. Catherine? He said, nodding as if we were old acquaintances. Thank you for meeting with me. Morrison gestured to the conference table. Let's get to the point, Mr. Sterling. What's this about? Nathan pulled a document from his briefcase. I'm prepared to voluntarily relinquish all parental rights to Owen. Full permanent custody to Catherine. No visitation. No child support obligations. Clean break. The room went silent. I stared at him. You're giving up your son? I'm being realistic. Nathan's voice was calm, almost businesslike. The judge made it clear I'm not winning this fight. I could appeal, drag it out for months, spend tens of thousands on lawyers. Or I could accept reality and move on with my life. Move on, Morrison's voice was sharp. Your son just lost his mother 4 weeks ago, and he's better off with his grandmother. You all made that abundantly clear. Nathan slid the document across the table. I've already signed. You can file it with the court today. Owen stays with Catherine. I walk away. I picked up the paper of formal voluntary termination of parental rights. Nathan's signature at the bottom already notarized. Why, I asked, why would you do this? Nathan leaned back in his chair. You want the truth? I'm not cut out to be a single father. I never was. Michelle handled everything, the school pickups, the doctor appointments, the homework, the emotional stuff. I worked. That was our arrangement. His voice was matter-of-fact, devoid of emotion. Now she's gone and I'm expected to do it all myself. I can't. I don't want to. And honestly, Owen deserves better than a father who's forcing himself to care. The words were so cold, so clinical, that for a moment I couldn't breathe. There's more, isn't there? Morrison said quietly. You're leaving Portland. Nathan smiled slightly. I'm relocating, Costa Rica. There's a resort development project, very lucrative opportunity. My partner and I are moving next month. Partner, Morrison raised an eyebrow. Paige Walsh. We've been seeing each other for about 8 months. She's in real estate development. The Costa Rica project is hers, actually. She needs someone with my experience to manage the sales side. 8 months, I said slowly. Michelle died 4 weeks ago. Yes. Nathan met my eyes without shame. Michelle knew. We discussed divorce before she got sick. But then the cancer diagnosis came and it seemed cruel to leave. So I stayed, took care of things. Waited for her to die. Waited for the situation to resolve itself. He shrugged. Look, I'm not going to pretend I was a good husband. I wasn't. Michelle knew it, I knew it. But I didn't kill her, Catherine. Cancer did that. And now you're free to run off with your girlfriend. Now I'm free to build a new life, and Paige doesn't want children around. She's made that very clear. So this, he tapped the document, is the best solution for everyone. Morrison stood. Get out! Excuse me. You heard me. Get out of my office before I have you arrested for emotional cruelty. Morrison's voice was ice. Owen is 9 years old. He just lost his mother. And you're standing here telling us you're abandoning him for a resort project and a woman who doesn't want children around. Get out. Nathan stood slowly, straightening his jacket. The papers are signed. File them or don't, I don't care. Either way, I'm leaving Portland on December 1st, with or without legal resolution. He walked out. I sat frozen, staring at the document. Catherine, Morrison said gently, are you all right? He never loved Owen, I whispered. Never. Michelle married a monster. I know. Morrison sat down beside me. But now Owen is legally permanently yours. Nathan can never come back, never change his mind. That's something, at least. I drove home in a daze, the signed document on the passenger seat. When I walked into the house, I found Owen sitting on the stairs, his face streaked with tears. Sweetheart, I started. I heard. He said, his voice broken. Dad called. On your cell phone. It went to voicemail. I heard him tell you he was signing the papers, that he's moving to Costa Rica with some woman. My heart shattered. Owen. Why doesn't he want me, Grandma? His voice rose desperate. What did I do wrong? Why doesn't Dad want me? I dropped my purse and ran to him, pulling him into my arms. He collapsed against me, sobbing. You didn't do anything wrong, I said fiercely. Nothing. This is about your father's choices, not about you. You are wonderful and precious and deserving of love. Your father is broken in ways that have nothing to do with you. But he's leaving. He's leaving me for some woman who doesn't even want kids. I know, baby, I know. Are you going to leave me too? His voice was tiny, terrified. Are you going to decide I'm too much trouble and go away? Never. I pulled back, held his face in my hands, made him look at me. Owen Michael Sterling, I am never leaving you. Never. I will be here until my very last breath. I promise you that. Do you understand me? He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I love you, I said. More than anything in this world. You are my grandson and you are mine, and no one is taking you away from me. Ever. He threw his arms around my neck and cried deep, wrenching sobs for the father who'd chosen a resort project over his own son. That night, after Owen finally fell asleep, Morrison called. Something's wrong, he said without preamble. People like Nathan don't surrender unless they're running from something. I started digging into this Costa Rica project. Catherine, there is no resort development. Paige Walsh doesn't work in real estate development. She's a marketing consultant, small-time, barely solvent. What are you saying? I'm saying Nathan's lying about why he's leaving the country, and I'm going to find out what he's really running from. He hung up. I stood in my dark kitchen listening to the house settle around me and thought about Nathan's cold smile in the courthouse hallway. Maybe Owen is better off with you. Not grief, not surrender. Escape. What was Nathan Sterling running from? The months that followed were the hardest and most beautiful of my life. December 2022. The first weeks were nightmares. Owen woke screaming at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., convinced I'd disappeared while he slept. I'd find him standing outside my bedroom door, tears streaming down his face, checking to make sure I was still breathing. "I'm here," I'd whisper, holding him. "I'm not going anywhere. Promise." Promise. Christmas came without Michelle. The house felt hollow, decorated, but empty. Owen helped me bake sugar cookies, Michelle's recipe, the one she'd made every year since she was 8 years old. "Do you think Mom can see us?" Owen asked carefully, piping frosting onto a star. "I think she's watching over you every single day. Do you think she's proud of me that I'm living with you now?" I set down my piping bag and pulled him close. "Baby, your mom fought with everything she had to make sure you'd be safe with me. She's not just proud, she's at peace knowing you're loved." He nodded against my shoulder. "I miss her so much, Grandma." "I know, I do too." Spring 2023. Dr. Bradley came for quarterly check-ins monitoring Owen's progress. After the March visit, she pulled me aside. "He's doing remarkably well," she said. "The nightmares are decreasing. His anxiety scores are improving. You're giving him exactly what he needs: stability, consistency, unconditional love. What about the abandonment issues? They'll take time, years probably. But Catherine," she smiled, "that child adores you. You're healing him just by being there." I enrolled Owen in swim lessons at the community center. At first he was terrified of the water clinging to the pool edge, but his coach, a patient woman named Jennifer, worked with him gently. By May, he was swimming laps. "Look, Grandma," he shouted one afternoon, his face bright with joy. "I can do freestyle." I watched him cut through the water, strong and confident, and felt my heart swell. Fall 2023. Owen's grades improved. His teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, called to tell me he'd made the honor roll. "He's a different child from last year," she said. "Focused, engaged, happy. Whatever you're doing, it's working." What I was doing was simple. I showed up every single day. School pickup, homework, helped dinner together, bedtime stories, even though he was almost 11. Routine, safety, love, but it was taking its toll on me. I turned 69 in September. My arthritis was worse. Mornings were agony. My hands stiff and aching. My blood pressure required daily medication. I tired more easily needed afternoon rests I'd never needed before. One night after Owen went to bed, I sat in my kitchen and cried. What if I died? What if I had a stroke, a heart attack? Owen would be orphaned again. Father, gone. Mother, gone. Grandmother, gone. What would happen to him then? Dorothy found me there at midnight, brought over by some sixth sense. "Catherine Brennan," she said firmly, sitting beside me. "Stop borrowing trouble. You're healthy, you're strong. And that boy needs you alive, not worrying yourself to death." "I'm almost 70, Dorothy. So what, I'm 73 and I can still out-garden you." She squeezed my hand. 10 years of love is better than a lifetime of neglect. You're giving Owen what he needs. Don't sabotage that with fear. Mother's Day, 2024. The school held a Mother's Day celebration. I'd assumed Owen would skip it. How could he celebrate without Michelle? But on May 10th, Owen came downstairs dressed in his nice shirt, holding a card he'd made. "Grandma, will you come to the Mother's Day thing at school? I know you're not my mom, but you're the closest thing I have, and I made you a card." I opened it with shaking hands. To Grandma. "Thank you for choosing me when everyone else gave up. You're not my mom, but you're my family. Love, Owen." Inside was a drawing, a house with 2 stick figures holding hands, labels, Grandma and me. At the bottom, my family, we are enough. I couldn't speak through my tears. I just nodded and held him. At school, I sat with the other mothers and grandmothers while Owen read his essay aloud. The person who taught me what love means is my Grandma, Catherine. She didn't have to take me in. My dad gave up on me, but Grandma never did. She's 70 years old and she still helps with my math homework, even though algebra is really hard. She comes to all my swim meets. She makes my favorite mac and cheese every Wednesday. She's teaching me that family isn't who you're born to, it's who chooses to stay. By the end, half the room was crying. Spring 2025. Owen turned 12 in March. He was taller now, his face losing its baby roundness, his voice starting to crack. He'd made the competitive swim team. He had friends, real friends who came over for pizza and video games. Dr. Bradley's final evaluation was glowing. "I'm officially signing off," she told me. "Owen no longer needs monitoring. He's thriving." One evening in April, as we cleaned up dinner, Owen said casually, "Grandma, you know how you always say you'll be at my swim meets?" "Of course." "Well, I was thinking, when I graduate high school, will you be there too?" I stopped, dish towel in hand. "Owen, you're 12. Graduation is 6 years away." "I know, but will you be there? I understood what he was really asking. Will you still be alive? Will you leave me like everyone else did?" I pulled him close. "Sweetheart, I plan to be at your high school graduation, your college graduation, your wedding, and the birth of your first child. I plan to be the most annoying, longest-living grandmother in the history of grandmothers." "Okay." He grinned. "Okay." By late spring, Owen was laughing again. Real laughter, not the forced kind. He told jokes at dinner. He sang in the shower. He brought home a report card with straight A's and a note from Ms. "Rodriguez Owen is a joy to teach." 3 years, Morrison said when he called to check in. 3 years of stability. You've given him a childhood Catherine. "He's given me a purpose," I said. We saved each other. That night, I tucked Owen's drawing, my family, grandma, and me, "We are enough," into Michelle's journal and put it back in the safe. 3 years of peace. 3 years of healing. 3 years before the past came knocking at our door again. October 2025. 3 years since Michelle died. Owen was 12 now, and I was 70. He was taller than me, had been since summer. His voice cracked when he talked, swinging unpredictably between boy and man. He'd started shaving the faint dark hair on his upper lip, self-conscious but proud. "Grandma, do I really need to shave this?" he'd asked last week, studying himself in the bathroom mirror. "Only if it bothers you." "Does it look weird?" "It looks like you're growing up." He'd grinned, that gap-toothed smile long gone, replaced by straight white teeth, courtesy of 2 years of braces. "Mom would freak out if she saw me now, wouldn't she? She'd be so proud." And Michelle would have been. Owen made honor roll every semester. He was captain of his middle school swim team. He volunteered at the animal shelter on Saturdays. He'd become the kind of young man Michelle had hoped he'd be: kind, responsible, thoughtful. On October 15th, the anniversary of Michelle's death, we drove to the Japanese garden where we'd installed a memorial bench in her honor. Owen carried flowers, white roses, her favorite. We sat together on the bench, the Portland autumn turning the maples gold and red around us. 3 years, Owen said quietly. "Feels like forever and yesterday at the same time." "I know." "I made varsity swim team," he told the memorial plaque. "Youngest on the team, Mom. Coach says I could get a scholarship someday if I keep training." I watched him talk to his mother's memory, my heart full and breaking at once. "Grandma's doing good, too," he continued. "Her arthritis bothers her sometimes, but she won't admit it. Too stubborn." He glanced at me, smiling. "Just like you were." After a while, he fell quiet. Then, "I used to wonder if Dad would come back. Like maybe he'd realize he made a mistake and want me again." My chest tightened. "And now I don't think I'd want him to." Owen looked at me. "I have you, that's enough. Better than enough, actually. You chose me when he didn't. That matters more than biology." I took his hand. "Your father's loss is my greatest gift." Sappy grandma. "I'm 70. I'm allowed to be sappy." He laughed and leaned against my shoulder, still small enough for that, despite his growth spurt. We sat in the quiet garden surrounded by Michelle's memory, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. True, deep peace. Owen was thriving. I was healthy enough, arthritis and blood pressure medication notwithstanding. We had a home, a routine, a life we'd built together from the ashes of tragedy. Dorothy had been right. 10 years of love was better than a lifetime of neglect. And I planned to give Owen many more than 10. That evening, Owen made dinner spaghetti his specialty while I set the table. He moved around the kitchen with confidence, humming off-key to music only he could hear through his earbuds. "Grandma, you want garlic bread." Is that even a question? He grinned and pulled the bread from the oven with the ease of someone who'd done it 100 times. We ate together, talking about his upcoming swim meet, his science project on marine biology, his friend Jackson's ridiculous attempt to grow a mustache. Normal, mundane, beautiful. After dinner, Owen did homework at the kitchen table while I finished the dishes. My hands ached, the arthritis was worse in the evenings, but I didn't mind. This was my life. This was enough. Grandma, why? Owen looked up from his algebra textbook. You know you're like the strongest person I've ever met, right? I turned from the sink. What brought that on? I don't know, I was just thinking. You're 70. You could have said no when the court gave you custody. You could have said you were too old or too tired, but you didn't. You fought for me, and you're still fighting for me every day. My throat tightened. Owen, I just wanted you to know that I see it, that I appreciate it. He ducked his head, embarrassed. Okay, sappy moment over. Back to algebra. I crossed the kitchen and kissed the top of his head. I love you, kiddo. Love you too, Grandma. That night, I fell asleep content. 3 years of peace. 3 years of watching Owen heal and grow. 3 years of being exactly where I was meant to be. 2 weeks later, on a Wednesday afternoon, the phone rang. Not at 3:42 a.m. like the call that had shattered my world 3 years ago. At 3 p.m. while Owen was at swim practice and I was folding laundry. Mrs. Brennan. A woman's voice, professional, but cautious. Yes, this is Janet Cooper from Oregon Child Protective Services. I'm calling about, well, this is rather complicated. It concerns Nathan Sterling and a 2-year-old boy named Mason. My heart stopped. What about them? Mrs. Brennan Mason is Owen's half-brother, same father, different mother, and he needs help. The laundry basket slipped from my hands, clean towels scattering across the floor. What happened? I whispered. Nathan Sterling was arrested in Costa Rica 3 days ago. The child's mother, Paige Walsh, abandoned Mason at a hospital in San Jose. She's disappeared. Mason has been turned over to U.S. authorities and is being transported back to Oregon. He has no other family except Owen, I finished numbly. Yes, and you. Mrs. Brennan Mason needs a home. We're hoping you might be willing to... I sat down hard in a kitchen chair. 3 years of peace. Over. The next day, Janet Cooper came to my house with a file folder and a careful expression. Mrs. Brennan let me explain the situation. In May 2023, Paige Walsh gave birth to a boy, Mason Sterling. Nathan is the biological father. DNA confirmed. They were living together in Costa Rica until 3 weeks ago. What happened 3 weeks ago? Nathan was arrested by Costa Rican authorities. Financial fraud, embezzlement of investor funds in a fake resort development scheme. He's facing extradition to the United States and federal charges. My hands went cold. And Paige, she abandoned Mason at a hospital in San Jose 2 days after Nathan's arrest, left a note saying she couldn't do this alone. Then she disappeared, possibly back to the States, possibly elsewhere. We don't know. So Mason is alone. He's been in temporary foster care in Costa Rica, now being transferred to Oregon. Under federal law, sibling placement is prioritized in cases like this. Owen is Mason's half-brother. You're Owen's legal guardian. That makes you the primary placement option. I stared at her. You're asking me to take another child at 70. I'm asking you to consider it. Mason is 2 years old. He speaks limited English, mostly Spanish from his time in Costa Rica. He's traumatized, scared, and has no one else. I'm 70 years old, I repeated. I have arthritis, high blood pressure. I already raised 1 grandson from tragedy. How can you possibly think I should take on a toddler? Janet's expression softened. Because you're the only family he has, and because you've already proven you can do the impossible. After she left, I sat in my kitchen, the file unopened on the table. My mind raced through the implications. Diapers, sleepless nights, toddler tantrums. At 70 years old, when most women my age were enjoying retirement, traveling, playing bridge with friends. But I wasn't most women. I was Catherine Brennan, the woman who'd raised Michelle alone, the woman who'd taken in Owen when everyone said I was too old, the woman who'd fought Nathan Sterling in court and won, still, a toddler. That was different. Owen had been 9 when he came to me, old enough to dress himself, feed himself, communicate his needs. Mason was 2, barely more than a baby. Owen came home from swim practice at 4:30, his hair still damp chlorine smell clinging to his skin. He took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. Grandma, what happened? I told him. Everything. Nathan arrested in Costa Rica for fraud. Paige abandoning a 2-year-old boy at a hospital. Mason in foster care being transported back to Oregon. The request from Child Protective Services. Owen was quiet for a long moment, his 12-year-old face serious beyond his years. Then, "Can I meet him?" "Owen, please, he's my brother. Half-brother, but still. Can I meet him?" "Sweetheart, this is complicated. Mason is only 2 years old. He doesn't speak English. He's been through terrible trauma. And I'm 70. I don't know if I can—" "You always tell me that family shows up," Owen interrupted. "That love means choosing the hard thing when someone needs you. Isn't that what you did for me?" His words hit me like a fist to the chest. Out of the mouths of babes, or in this case, out of the mouth of a wise 12-year-old who'd learned hard lessons about abandonment and love. "You're right," I whispered. "Let me call Janet. We'll arrange a visit." 2 days later, Janet arranged a meeting at the CPS office downtown. The building was gray concrete and fluorescent lights, the waiting room filled with tired-looking social workers and anxious families. We were led to a playroom on the second floor, bright primary colors toys scattered across foam mats, a two-way mirror on one wall. Mason sat in the corner, surrounded by toys he wasn't touching. His dark hair fell into eyes that were heartbreakingly familiar, the same shade of brown as Owen's, the same serious expression I'd seen in photos of Owen at that age. Same chin, same way of holding his small shoulders hunched like he was trying to make himself invisible. Owen walked in slowly, carefully, like approaching a scared animal. He knelt down to Mason's level about 3 feet away. Not too close, not threatening. "Hi, Mason," he said gently. "My name is Owen. I'm your brother." Mason stared at him with huge, frightened eyes. He didn't respond, just watched Owen with the wariness of a child who'd learned adults couldn't be trusted. Owen tried again, speaking slowly and clearly. "I know you're scared. I know you don't know me. But I want you to know something: you're not alone anymore. I'm your big brother, and I'm here. Still nothing." Mason's lip trembled. Owen reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a smooth stone worn from handling. "This was my mom's," he said quietly. "She used to keep it on her desk. When she died, I carried it everywhere because it made me feel close to her. I know what it's like to lose people. I know what it's like to be scared." Mason's eyes followed the stone as Owen held it up to the light. "You and me," Owen continued. "We have the same dad. He's not a good person. He hurt my mom. He left me alone. And now he's left you alone too. But you know what? We're brothers. And brothers take care of each other." Mason's lip trembled harder. Then slowly, tentatively, he reached out one small hand. Owen held perfectly still, letting Mason come to him. The toddler's tiny fingers touched Owen's face, exploring uncertainly. Then Mason said something soft, barely audible, a word I couldn't quite catch. "It's okay," Owen whispered, his own eyes filling with tears. "I'm here, buddy. Your brother is here." Mason suddenly lurched forward and wrapped his small arms around Owen's neck, burying his face in Owen's shoulder. His little body shook with sobs, deep, wrenching cries from a 2-year-old who'd been abandoned by everyone he knew. Owen held him, rocking gently, whispering soothing nonsense words. "I've got you. You're safe. I've got you." I stood frozen in the doorway, tears streaming down my face, watching my 12-year-old grandson comfort his terrified baby brother, watching love happen in real time. Janet touched my arm gently. "Mrs. Brennan, I think you have your answer." In the car afterward, Owen was quiet until we pulled into our driveway. The autumn sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink behind our house, Michelle's house, the house that had become a home for broken pieces of our family. "Grandma," Owen said finally. He looked so sad, so scared, just like I was when Mom died and Dad didn't want me. "I know, sweetheart. We can't leave him alone. We can't." Owen turned to face me, his 12-year-old face suddenly older, wiser than any child should have to be. "I know you're tired. I know you're old, sorry, but you are. I know this is asking too much, Owen, but I'll help. I promise. I'll change diapers. I'll help with feedings. I'll teach him English. I'll read him bedtime stories. His voice cracked, broke. "Grandma, he's my brother, and he needs us, just like I needed you 3 years ago, please. That night, after Owen went to bed, I stood in my bedroom looking at the photo on my dresser. Michelle at 8 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, holding her science fair trophy, believing I could fix anything. "What would you do?" I whispered to my daughter's image. "If you were me, baby girl, what would you do?" The photo didn't answer, of course, but maybe Michelle already had 3 years ago when she'd written in her journal, "Family isn't who you're born to, it's who chooses to stay." I picked up my phone and texted Janet Cooper, "We need to talk about the paperwork." 3 months later, I sat at my kitchen table with Mason asleep on my lap, his tiny fingers tangled in my sweater. In that quiet moment, I finally made the call that would change everything. "I'm ready," I said softly. "Bring my grandson home." Looking back now, I can see God's hand guiding every step, even the painful ones. When loss shattered our lives, I thought everything was over. But sometimes the hardest moments are the ones that lead us where we are meant to be. Many grandma stories begin with heartbreak, yet they end with strength. And many family drama stories reveal truths we were too afraid to face. Life taught me something important: don't wait for tragedy to say what matters. Speak the truth while there is still time. Love the people who need you. In many grandma stories, courage comes late, but it still changes everything. And in many family drama stories, healing begins the moment someone finally chooses love over fear. Today, our family looks different than it once did, but it is stronger. That's the lesson behind so many grandma stories, and even the hardest family drama stories. Family isn't always perfect, but love can rebuild what was broken. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice may help someone else. If stories like this resonate with you, consider sharing this video and subscribing so you won't miss future stories. Thank you sincerely for staying with me until the end. And a gentle note, some upcoming stories may include fictional elements created for educational storytelling. If that isn't for you, feel free to step away and choose content that better fits what you're looking for.